Good evening. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act and JSA 1046 et sec, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by advertising in the Star Ledger, El Nuevo Coquí, Haiti Progress, and Luz Americana newspapers, and by distribution to the administrative offices of the Newark Public Schools. A copy of the meeting notice was also forwarded to City Hall for posting. This is a board business meeting for Tuesday night, January 19, 2016.
Please rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Ms. Baskerville-Richardson?
Present.
Ms. Carter?
Present.
Ms. Fonseca?
Present.
Mr. Hassan? Present. Mr. Jackson? Mr. Lewis?
Present.
Mr. Rashidi?
Present.
Mr. Salinger?
Present.
Chair Perrello?
Present.
Quorum is present, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Before we continue with our committee report, I would like to thank you once again for attending our monthly school board meeting. This is the first meeting of the year. I hope you guys had a great holiday and are excited for what is left of the 2015-2016 school year. I'm delighted to continue the work along with our board members to make sure that our kids receive all the education and everything that is needed from us until June and out. With that being said, we're going to start with our committee's report, and the first person will be our Chair for Finance, Mr. Lewis. Okay, I'm going to make a correction. It will be Operations first, and then Finance.
Good evening. The Operations Committee met January 13, 2016. The Operations Committee discussed the following topics. Talked about the new Elliott Street School project. Mr. Leon informed the committee that on February 16th, we're looking for the opening of the new Elliott Street School. 3 preschool classrooms, additional 6 classrooms for pre-K to 4. Right now, the school will open up with a TCO on February 24th. Will be the ribbon cutting at the new Elliott Street School. Asking all board members to attend and be there at 9:45 a.m. The committee also reviewed the report from our last month's meeting, our minutes for our last month. Was unable to vote on the minutes because there were only 2 board members present. We also discussed the energy improvement plan, the 2015 violence and prevention incident report by Mr. Ingalls was presented. Ms. Carter had some concerns about a letter that went out at Malcolm X Shabazz High School about 2 guns that was found. We were told that they will get back to us with further information. A review of December 2000. I said that. I'm sorry. We also talked about Malcolm X Shabazz Fieldhouse. We were informed that there were 4 toilets replaced, a heater modem replaced, floors was replaced. Most of this occurred in the home team's bathroom. The committee, myself and Ms. Carter, talked about there being some type of consequences when this occurs, because we think that our children need to value their property. It's sadly that we found out that most damage was in our home team bathroom, locker room, Malcolm X Shabazz High School, where toilets had to be replaced, sinks had to be fixed, toilets had to be replaced, and other things had to be replaced in the bathroom. So we asked Mr. Barton and the rest of the committee, please look at us trying to put something in place to make our children be more responsible, even if we have to go to our coaches into our athletics department and let them know that next time something like this is happen, it will come out their budget because this costs the district thousands of dollars to replace when our bathrooms are destroyed. We also discussed a boiler and heating repairs. We also discussed the list of all line facilities. Far as the new Oliver Street School, looking for spring completion, and we're seeking a CO for that building. We also discussed the upcoming resolutions that's coming before the board, the lumber supplies, which I'm requesting that we accept. We talked about the recycling pickup and disposal, action that we reject the bid that we have. Also, we talked about the fire alarm system. Also, we talked about plumbing. The committee asked that all these resolutions be accepted by the entire board. We closed our meeting at about 7:12 on that night.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lewis. The floor is now open for discussion. Is there any questions for Mr. Lewis?
I just want to reiterate that I haven't received a response about the 2 weapons that were in Shabazz in October. So I went back and looked at the October report, and it did say 2 guns were in Shabazz. So if I could get further information on that, as well as a response to what we talked about in terms of the same charge being handled differently in different high schools. I just want to make sure I get a response to those things.
Thank you very much, Ms. Carter. Any other board members? Is there a motion to accept Mr. Lewis' operations report?
Motion.
Second. Second by Mr. Jackson. This is a motion to accept the Operations Committee report of January 13, 2016, as delivered by Mr. Lewis, moved by Ms. Fonseca, second by Mr. Jackson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? Motion carries. Report accepted.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Mr. Lewis once again with the Finance Committee report.
Finance Committee met on January 14, 2016. The meeting started at 6:12 p.m. Joined us, our special guest on our meeting was Commissioner Sheriff. Superintendent Sheriff, I'm sorry. Superintendent Sheriff. We talked about the 2015-2016 budget. He informed the committee that we closed our $75 million gap. The last report that we received was saying $61 million. The superintendent informed us that only $2.1 million came from the schools. The reason why the gap was so high because we were ordered by the state to give $6 million additional to the charter schools because of the enrollment. Also talked about next year's budget. We're looking at a possible $70 million gap, places that we're looking to cut so that the schools are not affected is our bank taxes, our sale of our buildings that's not being operated in, transportation, health insurance, prescription benefits. When Ms. Baskerville asked about what buildings are we talking about selling, the response was buildings that's already closed. We also talked about items that's going to be voted on by the board. We had discussions on that. We talked about the CAPA report that was presented to the board. The CAPA report, I know Ms. Fonseca had concerns about us finding problems in some of the same departments and asked questions like, what do what is the district plan to try to solve some of the problems in our capital report. Our committee meeting was adjourned at 7:55 p.m. on that same night.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lewis. Now the floor is open for discussion.
Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, apologies.
Mr. Jackson.
Good evening, everyone. All right, there we go. Good, Happy New Year, first of all, to everyone in the audience, to my fellow colleagues, and to the superintendent and NPS staff and families that attended in the meeting tonight. More importantly, I do understand that once the question was asked, what buildings does the district plan to sell, and the response was the buildings that the district aren't using. But can we get a list of actual school locations? And if so, the list can be incorporated to detail how long the school has been closed and what occupied that building before its closure. I do know that some of the buildings were previously leased to charters, and those charters were closed, and it left the building to sit empty. Some buildings actually aided in the relief to relieve overcrowding, but again, due to lease shared agreements and closing of schools and closing of academies, those buildings were left to sit vacant. So if we can have a comprehensive list.
Without accepting your characterization, but I'd be more than happy to get you the list.
Thank you.
The copy of the list, Mr. Jackson, of the schools that's offline was also provided in our operations committee meeting. I'll make sure that I forward the list
Right.
To all the.
So I understand that, but then again, the next question would be, is the district planning to sell all offline buildings?
Would you like? I'd be happy to discuss that. Would you like to have a discussion about that?
Yes. And it doesn't necessarily, I can understand that the district needs time to prepare.
No.
Whatever.
I'd be delighted to. Discuss it.
Okay, well,
We can do that now, or we can do it in committee, or we can do it.
we can let the chair decide
Sure.
how we'll move forward with it.
Superintendent, if you would like to answer now, would be best.
Yeah, we have around approximately 10 buildings, most of which are not only unoccupied but uninhabitable. And I believe, with one exception, has not been occupied by a charter school. And they are, again, I'll be happy to. We will convey the list to you. They're costing the district, by our estimates, $2 to $4 million a year in utilities and shoveling snow. I was in one of them, and there was somebody inside the building ripping copper piping out of the building, and there was the security was concerned that there were actually people living in the building, we are facing a very substantial budget challenge next year, and we have been in discussions with other authorities in the cities. Is there a way to transfer these buildings and sell them in the open market for housing developments, for example, to a university, and so on? Those discussions are in the pretty early phases. I've talked to the mayor's office about it. I've talked to the Newark Housing Authority about it, to clear up one misconception that I assume is not far from the back of some people's minds. These are not sales to charter schools. These are sales to the highest bidder. And I cannot yet predict what the outcome of that is, but there may be as much as $10 to $15 million of value. And every dollar that we get for that is dollars that avoids cuts at the school level. So that's what this is about.
Mr. Jackson, also, I'm looking at the paper in my mind, so I know it was Wilson Avenue. I know Science Banneker was on the list.
Not Wilson.
Was it Science Banneker? Science
No,
Banneker.
the Banneker.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we can't go with the list, because
We're happy. It exists. It's in the committee, but we'll happy to get it to you. But with all due respect to the vice chair, Wilson is not one of those. Is not one.
Right.
Of those. Yeah.
Okay.
That's it? Okay, Ms. Basco-Richardson.
Yes, so regarding the sale of buildings, when 18th Avenue was sold for, I think, $3.4 million, and then the state took that aid back, that money back from the state aid that the district received, and I know that the law has changed now, so the district, excuse me, can possibly benefit in terms of keeping some or all of that money, depending upon who it's sold to and what the usage would be for the building. So I guess what I'm asking is, these sales that you are contemplating, are they being done in a way that the district would be able to retain as much of or all of the money from any sales that did take place?
Thank you for raising that. We are very mindful of that provision, and you are right that there was a correction. I believe it was in the budget language last year, and but with the track, and I like the way you said contemplated, because it's not consummated, but the transaction that's being contemplated would enable the district to recover the proceeds from the sales. And by the way, to reinvest those in the buildings, the Newark Public School buildings, air conditioning at Shabazz, for example, or other projects that need to be done. The idea is to take these buildings that nobody is using and get the proceeds from that and put them back into the buildings that do need attention.
Thank you. Just one thing. Chair Lewis, for the Finance Committee, I'd like to, I'm just saying now, what's on my mind, to request that on our Finance Committee agenda, that we review those changes and guidelines for the sales of buildings so that it can be reported out to the entire board and the public. Thank you.
Also, Madam Chair,
Mr. Jackson?
just rather quickly, and I'm not sure if we can have an answer tonight for this, but so understanding that we are definitely in a budget crisis, and the sale of the buildings are to alleviate costs to us that are spiraling out of control, and to also bring revenue in. But my question would be, so what happens to once we sell the buildings? What happens after that? Meaning, would this plug a budget gap, or is this just putting a Band-Aid on a wound that keeps spreading?
Well, again, I don't want to accept the characterization of it, but this is a piece of a comprehensive solution, but not the entire solution.
Okay, so just for the sake of moving forward with the meeting, I think that in finance, the deeper discussion needs to go into what would be the solution to helping fix our budget crisis that is evolved into this massive number that's...
Sure. So we had a pretty detailed discussion about that in both the Finance and the Budget Committee, and we haven't scheduled time to do that here, but if you'd like that to be the subject of a private meeting or a subsequent public meeting, I'd be glad to do that.
Any other board members? No. I have a question, and I know this was brought up at the Finance Committee, and I shouldn't have asked then, but now if it's possible to have answers regarding the situation that's going on with the prescription benefits. I just wanted to know, Superintendent, if it's possible, if you have the answer, how many years has the company Connor Strong has been the broker of the district?
Sure. It goes back, the predecessor company goes back to the Bolden administration in 2000, excuse me, I've got to hit my little green light here. 2001, and in fact, Ms. Hitchcock and her team very helpfully helped me get the answers to that question today. And I can give you the details if you want, but the predecessor company was hired by the Bolden administration. It was a minority-owned benefits consulting firm. It was eventually acquired by Commerce Bank, and the firm was renamed Connor Strong. So it goes back to 2007. It goes back under the name Connor Strong. It predates, I know there have been certain allegations in the press, but the suggestion being that it somehow is related to this governor, this administration, or to George Norcross or the like. That's, as usual, was that someone got ahead of their blocking a little bit on that. That is not, those are not the facts.
Okay.
And by the way, they are effectively an insurance broker, not an insurance company. They're just like when you go to buy auto insurance, you go to a broker, they then price 2 or 3 different companies, and they say, I think the best deal for you would be to go with Geico or whatever, or State Farm. And then you say, all right, I'll take your advice, you're an expert, I'm not. So they're a broker as opposed to a insurance company.
In addition to that, I have a few questions, as a matter of fact, in relation to this matter. Benecard is the company that we have selected, correct?
Correct.
Okay. What is the savings that we are going to have?
So the savings come in 2 categories. It will be around $1.5 million a year. So you can divide that by month. Maybe a hair less than that. And in addition, we're paying about $400,000 a year for an administrative fee for this particular slice of benefits. Everything else is handled by our extremely qualified benefits department. You may know Andrea. And so we are paying basically a third-party administration fee of $30,000 a month. So you would add that to the $1.5 million I mentioned before.
Okay. The reason why I'm asking, because I was informed that we have a contract with our current provider, and we still have to pay them until the month of July. So therefore, we are not saving any money.
That is not my understanding. We will certainly look into that. It's not yours either.
That's not my understanding from HRS.
Yeah.
Okay. I will provide the information that I received, because I was aware, I was told that we still have to pay them until the month of July, and I was given the amount. But one of the things that bothers me is that, we continuously go out and use third parties to see what's best for the district. And in the month of, I believe it was September, October, we passed a resolution where all the contracts should go out to bid. I understand, Ms. Wilson, you did mention that the prescription and the health benefit didn't go out to bid. Doesn't have to go out to bid because it falls under a category, which I completely forgot the number. But if we are in a new position where we have a new superintendent, and in fact, we are seeking transparency, and, we are starting in a new slate, I don't see why we should use Connor Strong, which has been working for districts for God knows how many years, which is, I believe you said 2007, 2011. We should not use them and go out to bid and in reality seek who's the best person that has the best interest. One of the things that I do suggest we do, has a contract for Benecard, has it been already signed by you?
I believe yes.
Okay, is there a clause in that contract where it states that if we cancel their contract, we will get penalized?
I would have to review the contract. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, because if there isn't any clause, then I suggest we go out to bid and seek the lowest bidder, the one that's going to give us the lowest rate, so it could look like, in fact, we are being transparent and we have nothing to hide.
So
Good evening. Good evening, Madam Chair. Let me add some other additional pieces of information. The Connor Strong process was a deliberative one. There were competitive proposals sought from several vendors, actually, I think 3 or 4, if I remember correctly now. So there was competition that was encouraged. These were 4 totally different vendors. As you mentioned, the statute does indicate that we don't have to bid, that insurance is an exception to bidding. But we did employ a deliberative and comparative process to determine that Benecard provided us the best savings at this point in time.
Okay. I understand that. which is another thing that I do recommend, even though you're saying that we went out, that Connor Strong did request 4 or 5, maybe Connor Strong, requested the 4 or 5 that they work with, that is to their benefit. One of the things that I suggest we do, and I don't know if the board feels the same way, I feel that we should hire a law firm to review all our contracts and have a forensic audit. So in fact, we are providing the district, if we are in a position of saving money, we are doing what is right, and we are seeking competitors to save the district money.
If I may, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. I just want to correct the record. There is a distinction between public bidding and competitive bidding. So for competitive bidding, if we were, for example, buying toilet paper, the lowest bidder in that category, because the toilet paper would be rendering the exact same number and the same quality of that, we would then be seeking competitive bidding with the lowest bidder. The lowest bidder does not mean it's the most responsible bidder. For professional services, in the actual title that you were looking for, it's Title 18A, Subdivision 5A. That allows for the exemption for professional services for the exact reason of being able to deliberate and articulate the different variations of what might be the factors and specifications of the actual provider, what they're giving to us. So I would submit to the board that we did very due diligence pursuant to our broker of record that presented to us all of the indicia information to make the most informed decision that we could. And also I will highlight, this is the same practice that we have performed in other areas with the exceptions such as worker compensation, whereas that is not bidded outside. Also, I give the example of the procurement of legal services.
I understand, and this is where I just wrap up. I understand, Ms. Hitchcock, that we have done things in the past, and we're just renewing and just doing what has been done in the past. But in the past, we have made mistakes. In the past, we have not saved the district any money. Moving forward, we have a new superintendent who is saying to everyone, I'm going to be transparent. So why not be transparent in this case if it's going to save the district a lot of money?
So several things. One, we have been advising the board in multiple committee meetings as far back for almost a year about this. Second, that the only mistake that we could make here is to spend $2 million that could be spent on teachers and books and computers on an unnecessary purchase. This did not come to the last opportunity for the existing mechanism to accept our requests that we go out to bid for the entire district occurred in November, and we acted with great dispatch after that on the theory that every month that passes is basically the equivalent of a teacher's salary. So we do endorse the principle of transparency. We feel we have been transparent to the board through its committees, and more importantly, and just to correct what I worry is a misperception here, as the best, when insurance is purchased, again, it's like when you go out to get household insurance, you generally go through a broker. This is a broker that's been in place since the Bolden administration. And we trust their advice. They collected competitive bids. They came back and they presented them, and we said we want the lowest price with equivalent benefits, and we want to do it now. So I regret the sort of misimpressions that we have created through this process. I assure you that our interest was to get the maximum benefit for our insureds at a lower price with better financial controls over the mechanism. That's really the whole story here.
Okay, Mr. Lewis, thank you.
So, Mr. Superintendent, this contract right here, the prescription contract, there's a board of trustees, right? And how you explained to us, the vote was locked 4-4.
Mm-hmm.
So what the process, when the vote is locked 4-4, what is the process after that? What happened once the vote is locked?
Well, the basic, my understanding, and my colleagues will improve upon my answer, I'm sure, is that this is something that was set up in 1972, or way long ago, right? And when there is we on repeated occasions asked for the opportunity to do this through the board of trustees, through the board, the benefits trustees. And as recently as November, it was deadlocked 4-4, right? So we then went to our attorneys and asked what our options were, and got an opinion from them that the only way to address this would be to take the position that we could do this outside of the context of the board. There was no other mechanism built into the underlying documents of the board.
So the broker, Foster, am I right? That's Foster.
I'm sorry?
Foster is the broker, right?
No, sir, Connor Strong.
Connor Strong.
Yeah.
And what are their ties to Norcross?
I don't know. I believe he either runs the business or has an ownership interest in the business or is an executive with the business. I'm not sure. We can Google it. He may be the CEO. I don't know. But it's his firm. Let's not mince words on that.
So what harm will we do by bringing it out for a public bid?
Well, we did. First of all, we lose time. Secondly, we invited the board to allow us to do a public bid. And again, don't be misled here, because they were perfectly happy to do a public bid for a contract that disaggregated the NTU. Remember, this mechanism serves 617, 3, and the NTU, right? And to get the maximum cost savings, you have to bundle them all together, right? We have been in discussions with them, with this board, I believe going back to when? Last spring, and hit brick wall after brick wall after brick wall, and finally we decided enough was enough. We were spending children's money unnecessarily, and we took this action.
So my question is this: if actually we locked in this contract to June, and we're going to have to pay them anyway, why not use that time to put in place a bidding process for people to bid from now until that time, so we have enough time to get the best bid?
So I am confident in representing to you that the process that led the decision to choose Benecard achieved exactly the same cost savings as a bidding process, because it required our broker collecting individual bids. Everybody knew about it. People who wanted to participated in it. We took the best program for the lowest price. So I don't think it would add anything. I think we would lose time, and we will need to check about this point that we would need to pay through the year, because that's not something we believe is the case.
I mean, from what I was told, that there is a 30 or 60 day notice that you have to give to this insurance company. You can't just come in and say, we're going to cut this benefit. It's a 30 or 60 day. I don't want to.
Yeah, we gave the notice.
You gave the 30. When was they notified that that we would no longer use their services?
So, Mr. Lewis, if I can help with this, there is a 60-day clause, as you corrected, articulated. Mm-hmm. It is our understanding we will be tendering any payment to Benecard not before March of this year. So there is no overlap that we are anticipating whatsoever. The 60-day notice would end our service provider fee to the current provider, which is GPP.
But I'm sure that's accurate, but we're all sort of guessing because we don't have the, Ms. Hitchcock is not guessing, but we will look into this point about the payment schedule and the notice and happily let you know in writing when we've had a chance to do it. But I don't want to get too far ahead of the documents.
Okay, and then we have Crystal, and then Ms. Baskerville.
First, hello everybody, Happy New Year. I hope you guys all have a great New Year. I just want to say first that if we gave, I always have an issue with us not going out to bid. It doesn't matter to me whether it's whether we have to or we don't. I just believe that the bidding process makes things competitive, and if we want to get good prices, then I think, what do we have to lose with doing that. That's been my platform since I've gotten here, because I know the benefits of when you put things out for bid. I just want to put that on the table. And secondly, if we had 60 days to notify them that we were going to transfer over, then you also had 60 days to put it out for bid. So, because technically, I think it's only 30 days that it needs to be out. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but we also had 60 days in advance to put it out instead of just making a decision. So I think that that's something, we're here now. I don't know if we can change that, but going forward, that's something we need to take into account, because we keep running into the same wall, which is, well, it's a time constraint. We need to vote on it. We need to do it now because there's always time constraints. And I feel that that's wrong, because if there's things that the district knows about in advance, because I wasn't privy to anything up until our finance meeting. So, I just think that this is something we need to address going forward, and I just wanted to put that out there, Madam Chair, because I know we've discussed this at several meetings.
So I agree with you. We can do better. We can do beginning before. I want you to sort of walk, I would respectfully ask you to walk in our shoes a little bit, meaning that we're closing a very difficult budget year. We have been trying to get this changed and advising the board through committees and private conversations, really going back to next spring, last spring. We kept trying to go through the process, and we kept getting, and only in November did the answer come no, and then we pulled the trigger. I do believe, I understand that insurance is actually a little bit, that when you have a broker, this is the way it's always been done with Dr. Bolden and Ms. Bolden, Dr. Janey, that this is how insurance is sort of generally bought. So I endorse your view that we take a look at this together going forward, but we are where we are on this one. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Basco.
Yes, thank you. My main concern here is the fact that we may be treading on some contractual issues here, and, I discussed this in the Finance Committee meeting because, as you said, this goes back to the 1970s, but I don't know if everybody really knows what we're really talking about. The fact that the Supplementary Fringe Benefits Fund is basically been an agreement or a partnership between the district and the NTU for some probably 40 years. The 4 and 4 that people are referencing are the 4 representatives of the district and the 4 representatives of the union that sit on that governing board that govern prescription, dental, and vision for employees who fall under the NTU. So my question is, by unilaterally making the decision that the district has made, I would like to know if the risk to the district has been considered, the financial risk to the district in terms of possible legal actions, and how that might compare to the $1 million that we say that we are saving. And my other question is, so since the 1970s, both the district and the union have sat with even numbers on the Supplementary Fringe Benefits Board, and now there's an impasse, and the district has made a decision, again, I'm saying, to make a unilateral decision. So, at any point, did the district actually withdraw from that partnership or whatever, that contract that is in the NTU contract? Did the district do anything to formally withdraw their participation in the Supplementary Fringe Benefits Board? Does that board not still exist? Is the contract that states that board, exists and runs with these 4 members from each side, is that still in force? I'm really concerned that we can be in violation, and I know we don't, discuss specifics of, negotiations and things here, but my question is this not a matter to be negotiated rather than the district making a unilateral decision that could potentially be of more risk than gain to the district?
Thank you for your question. So I don't want to go into particular legal matters, but there have been several subsequent decisions of what PERC. PERC is the board that to which one takes labor issues, public employees retirement board committee or something, or commission, that gives us reason to believe that whatever is or is not in the contract is not this. It is a unilateral decision in the sense that there are certain matters that when one is free to make a decision outside of negotiation. But I think in terms of the sort of broader point here, there is, frankly, absolutely zero evidence that negotiation, in the sense you're using it, would have yielded a different outcome, in that for 6 months we were repeatedly asking the NTU to allow us to put this out to bid, and repeatedly they were telling their 4 people to not let that happen on the terms we thought would have the maximum savings to the district. So I don't know. I mean, I love the idea of getting to a negotiated resolution where everybody's happy, but I think we might all agree well, I shouldn't say that. I certainly reached the conclusion that we would just be going through the motions to have a negotiation after 6 months of trying to get them to allow us to go forward.
So, but isn't the contract with the NTU that the district has that basically speaks to the existence of this board and the, I would assume, the powers inherent in that board, does that contract not still exist? Is that contract not still in force?
The contract still exists, and again, I'm very reluctant to talk about our legal theory. There are certain matters that are called management prerogative, right? And the changing of one's insurance provider, according to state law, is something that is actually not even negotiable. It is something that management has the unilateral, to use your phrase, right to do. So we will see, I'm sure in due course, whether that is a valid theory of law. But I can assure you that this was carefully considered by legal experts.
Thank you very much, Ms. Baskerville-Richardson. Any other board members who have questions? Mr. Sullinger?
I just want to, I'm a union man. I always been. And just to take things away, to me, is not right. And negotiation counts big in unions. It gives faith to both parties. If you lose the faith, you lose the party. So I'm just saying we should negotiate. And the board, because I keep hearing we, but we don't say nothing. We have nothing to vote for. If we do, you pass it anyway. So this is going back to the same thing. So you might as well get the toilet paper she was talking about and put it to this contract.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sullinger. Anybody else? No? Is there a motion to accept Mr. Lewis' Finance Committee?
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Jackson, second by Von Second. Carter, I'm sorry, I didn't look over there. This is a motion to accept the Finance Committee report of the meeting of January 14, 2016. It was delivered by Mr. Lewis, motion by Mr. Jackson, second by Ms. Carter. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? Motion carries. Report accepted.
Next we have, yes, Mr. Lewis?
Just before we move on, I think, Madam Chair, I think we heard the consensus of this board concerning that item. And if the district, we need to know if the district plan on moving forward with their decision, with the prescription plan. If not, I think that we as a board need to be prepared to even come up with a resolution, or write a letter in support of our employees, saying that we're against this no bid contract, and that we're going to stand on the side of the employees. We need to know where the district is at this point with this contract, so we can know how to move forward. I would definitely like to know that as the chair of finance, because even though the district may be in charge of, finding contracts or whatever, we must still understand that this board have financial control. And because we have financial
So you can
control,
stand on the side of whoever you want, Mr. Vice Chair. I'm going to stand on the side of the children, and I need this million and to $3 million.
So,
No, it's, yep.
Because if you was using
Mr.
the children,
Lewis?
you'll shut down charter schools.
Mr. Lewis?
Madam Chair, Mr. Superintendent, I'm asking professionally that you respond to us because we're not children here. We're adults. We're representing children. So I'm asking you in a professional manner, let us know what position that you are on so we can know as a board how we can be respectful and how we can do our job as elected board members to move forward to represent this district.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lewis. I do also echo your sentiment.
So, Mr. Lewis, if I may render an answer to you, it is a position of the district that we believe that we have diligently, with our fiduciary responsibility, to ensure that we have a balanced budget and to forecast what might be mitigation of costs going forward, that we have undertaken that exercise in moving forward with the change of the prescription plan as described. Also, it is our position that we believe that we do have the authority to do so. Granted, as the superintendent indicated, that may be played out in a different venue to be determined. Also, I would like to highlight factually that it is one union only that objected to this transfer, to the transfer of a new provider. It was only one out of our 8 total unions that represent the district.
Ms. Hitchcock, how big is that? Like, is that the biggest union or this?
Yes.
It's the big, which consists of how many
Yes,
members?
there is no question. It is the biggest union. It is the Newark
No, I
Teachers
just didn't
Union.
know, so I wanted clarity. How many members is that?
I'll be quite honest, I don't know exactly.
I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of about 4,000.
Ms. Baskerville?
So, I mean, I just think that, in the larger picture, this is a question of the board, taking their toys and going home, basically, because, the district, not the board, not us, because the district didn't get its way. And I maintain that this agreement is still a standing agreement, unless you can, somehow prove that it doesn't exist. But if you're saying that the district and the board have been attending supplementary fringe benefits meetings, and obviously the district is still participating on the board. So, it's just, I don't want to use all the words that are coming to my mind, like union busting and stuff like that. But if you're in a situation where you are to basically have a consensus before moving forward, and you stay in that relationship at those meetings, and then you basically pull rank and make a unilateral decision, I think that that's basically unethical. Some changes may have to be made, but that is not a responsible way to make them in terms of the district dealing in a business-like manner with its constituents.
So we clearly have a different point of view about what's ethical and what's moral, and I'm going to stand by mine.
So I just want to, my last point, I'm going to leave it alone after this. I want us to be, to think about what we do to others, because it always could come back to us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lewis, for your quote. In fact, from what I'm seeing, the board is in a stance that we are in support of the union, and the way things are occurring without taking the board's input on matters like this, that one side say that we are saving money, but on the other side, we're not doing what is right and what's best. It actually, as Ms. Baskerville-Richardson said, take our toys and go home. So, in fact, it makes us feel that the board really doesn't matter, and obtaining financial control doesn't matter either, because at the end of the day, the district will do whatever they feel that is best for them. With that being said, I would like to continue with our committee chairperson report, and our person next, our board member who's next is Ms. Carter.
Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. Our personnel meeting was on Thursday, January 14th via a conference call, which started at 5:15. On that call was myself, Phil Sellinger, and Vanessa Rodriguez. The meeting ended at 6 p.m. Vanessa opened the meeting by providing updates on both vacancies and separations from the district. Board members asked about the 33 discharges. Vanessa shared that criminal history letters are sent to NPS by the state for all employees who haven't passed a fingerprinting or were arrested and failed to report. The vacancy report consists of 70 vacancies in total, 28 in the high schools, 42 in the elementary schools. There have been 100 total separations since our last committee meeting. 33 were discharges due to criminal history. There was 1 death, 19 retirements, 45 resignations or relocations, and two in temporary employees ended they were temp employees, so that ended. A recruitment update. Vanessa shared that there's a vacancy for the director of staffing. About 3 weeks ago, she resigned, so that position is open. She shared with me the job description for that. This is a critical role for the district. Board members will review the the job description, and share with the community for potential candidates. Also, as many of you are aware, Vanessa is no longer with us. Larissa Schamberg is taking her position for now. It was explained on a conference call that she wants to make sure that it's a fit for her, and that she is open to there being other people applying for the job, because she wants the best candidate for the job. However, she is taking that lead right now. During that conference call, I asked if board members could be a part of the interviewing process when looking for the director of staffing, as well as if there are interviews for the chief talent officer. It was told to me that the superintendent would have to get back to us on that in terms of if we could be a part of that process. That is my hope, as well as other board members. Then we talked about the prescription plan. Vanessa shared an overview as to why the district has decided to move from GPP as the prescription provider to Benacard. A few of the reasons are: the district is spending $15 to $18 million a year paying GPP for their prescription services. After a review by NPS broker of record, Connor Strong, of all potential providers, including GPP, Horizon, Aetna, Express Scripts, and Benacard, NPS learned that Benacard provided equal or better services than GPP and would also be a cost saving to the district. GPP has provided prescriptions to Local 617, Local 3, and NTU. Putting all employees under Benacard will also be a huge saving for the district. Separately, GPP will only provide itemized bills for Local 617 and Local 3. GPP refuses to share detailed bills for NTU, and on a monthly basis charges NPS between $3 to $4 million. The Benacard pharmacy network has increased from 50,000 to 63,000 locations that employees can utilize to fill their prescriptions.
I'm sorry, I think that you missed, it was 30 to 40,000, not 3 to 4 million. Just, yeah. I'm sorry, I apologize. I should not get in your space, but
No, correct me. What was it?
I think everything you said is exactly right, but there was a charges 30 to,
I said 3 to, NTU and on a monthly basis charges NPS between $3 to $4 million.
Ms. Carter, I believe it's on a quarterly basis.
There may be a typo there, but that's okay. That's fine. I apologize.
It's on a monthly basis.
So, Larissa, this is your chance to.
Yes, I believe Vanessa's notes indicate it's on a monthly basis. It's $3 to $4 million. It's actually a quarterly basis, $3 to $4 million. It's about $1 million a month.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, that is a lot.
Ms. Carter, continue.
All employees now have the opportunity to obtain a 90-day supply of medications via mail order and pay one copay. If they choose to use the mail order, medications will be mailed directly to their home. There is no increase in the copays that employees currently pay for brand and or generic drugs. However, if the medication cost is under $5, employees will pay the lesser amount. Specialty medications are available through mail order at a $0 copay. Benacard has a national toll-free number that is open 24/7 to answer all of your inquiries, and NPS wants to ensure all employees receive equal to or better services. So it was assured to us on the call that this was a good change and that there is, I'm just saying what happened during the meeting, and it was said that they are providing better services, and that was part of, in order for us to change, you had to be receiving equal to or better services. I am waiting for a list so that I can compare it myself. I asked for a list of the plan that existed in the past versus what we have today so that I can see the prices, the benefits, and everything. It was said to me that I would have it. Vanessa stopped employment today with the district, so I spoke to Larissa earlier. She just got back, so she assured me that by the end of the week we would have a conversation and she would get me those documents so I can do the comparison for myself. And the meeting ended at 6 p.m.
Thank you very much, Ms. Carter. The floor is now open for discussion. Ms. Vasquez is first, and then Mr. Lewis.
So, question, and I do need to disclose that many years ago when I worked for the district, I was a trustee on the Supplementary Fringe Benefits Fund, which is where I kind of know so much about it. So my question is, under the fund, if I remember correctly, if, for example, a teacher had a teacher or other NTU person had a grievance in terms of maybe a medication that they wanted wasn't covered, or they needed for some reason to have a consult regarding a particular medication and their need for it or their need to extend it or whatever, rather than it just being some unilateral decision by someone that they could never know or see. I do have recollection of at least one person coming before the Fringe Benefits Board and pleading their case as to why they needed the continuation of a particular medication, and having heard that, we did, if I remember correctly, we did approve that. So my question is, under Benaccord, what access would there be for employees to be able to communicate if they have a grievance? Because as we know, sometimes someone needs a medication, doctor prescribes a medication that a particular insurance agent, company, whatever, may not approve. What recourse under Benaccord will the employee have? Does anyone know that?
We'll be happy, yeah.
Okay, and my last question, and I'm sorry I didn't think of it before when I was asking my question about the risk that the district is taking. What I didn't specifically ask is if you can disclose, not the details, but if you could just please let us know in general, have there been any legal actions so far by representatives of the fund, by the union? Has it gone to any kind of legal entity? Has it gone to PERC? Where does this situation sit now legally? I didn't ask that specifically, so I'm asking it now.
So what I can say at this point in time, am I on? Is that the district has received correspondence from a law firm called Saul Ewing, which has been retained by the Newark Teachers Union, indicating that litigation papers will be forthcoming. As of today, we do not have any litigation papers that have been served onto the district.
Okay, so that was about litigation. What about PERC or any other entity? Did you?
I could. So we filed an application to PERC asking them to take jurisdiction over the case to essentially resolve the legal issue. And they essentially, as I understand it, said, it's not ripe yet, we're not going to take it yet. They didn't rule on the merits. They said they wanted to go through. We also applied under the terms of the agreement to get an arbitrator appointed to resolve this with a neutral decision maker, and that application is pending.
Madam Chair.
So, okay.
Mr. Lewis is next, and then Mr. Jackson.
Ms. Carter, how much did you say that the district said that they spend yearly to GPP?
I said on a monthly basis between 3 to 4 million, and I was corrected that that amount is quarterly.
Quarterly.
We spend between 15 and 18 million dollars a year.
Yeah. So who represent the board, the district, on the board of trustees, Mr. Superintendent?
The current NPS trustees are Loretta Sante, Director of Labor Relations, myself, Andrea Cavanas, who is Director of Employee Services in the HR Department, and Raymond Casetta.
Okay, so the board of trustees all have a voting right? So I just want to ask some questions, some numbers. For the year of 2015, right? By month, but from January to December, for week 1, it estimated $758.01 for the first week of each month.
I'm not sure what that is, if you're asking a question, Mr. Lewis.
I'm gonna get to that.
Oh, okay.
The second week, each month, $29,686.56. Third week of each of the month is $30,191.55. Week 4, $29,529.93. And week 5, which only consists of 4 months of the week, is $9,655.17. In total, that will bring yearly the district paid $126,821.22 for 2015. Where do you get that number that you said from to the number that
I'll answer. What is the numbers you have listed? What are they referring to?
It's referring to what the board approved for GPP.
I'm not quite sure what you're referring to, but I'm going to try to give an explanation. There are 2 payments that, the payments you've identified seem similar to what is known as a monthly operating payment that the district makes for the Supplemental Fringe Benefits Fund. That payment is approximately $30,000 a month. Because I don't know what you're talking about, I cannot address it. But I will tell you that I do sign the payments for GPP, and I know that their bills on a monthly basis, and this is not only the cost of the prescriptions for the employees, but also including their administrative costs, etc., run on an average $1 million a month. I can verify that number because I signed for it.
So you saying that the 28 or the 30 that we're talking about a week, is only for the administrative costs?
No. I have to assume that because that number is close to the number paid for the monthly operating expense of the fund, it has nothing to do with GPP. There is a payment that the district makes to allow the fund as it exists has existed since 1972 to operate. The fund does not bring in any revenue, so it can't support itself. It lives in a building for which a mortgage was paid at one time, and there are 4 employees, if I remember correctly now, whose salaries we have to pay. Those are paid by district expenses. That $30,000 a month, which equates to $360,000 a year. The payments to GPP are for the provision of prescription medication to NTU employees and the cost of GPP services. Have I made myself clear? Okay, so because I don't know what your numbers refer to, I cannot answer to them. I can only make a sort of bridge because the number is similar to what we pay as an operating expense.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Mr. Jackson, and then Ms. Carter.
Thank you. So, Miss Carter, the position that was available was not only Chief Talent Officer, but Director of Staff.
Executive Director of Recruitment and Selection.
Okay. So, if I can, or if we can as a board, can we get a description of that job title and what that consists of? Because
I have it. I'll send it to you right now.
Thank you. Because not Director of Staff Leader, but what was it again?
Executive Director of Recruitment and Selection.
Okay, so that reports to whom?
Chief Talent Officer.
Chief Talent Officer. Wow. Okay. You know, not to get too off topic, but when we think of ways to save money and to consolidate things to pump funds back into the classroom, I mean, with all these titles and executive director of this, that, the third, between the Office of Personnel, Employee Services, Payroll, and Talent, I mean, that there in itself, I'm sure you could save a couple of $100,000, but not to indulge too much on that.
So here's a suggestion, Mr. Jackson.
Hold on one second. I just want to finish. Let me finish. And moving away from that, with the title of Chief Talent Officer being vacant, is it possible the board, can not only be a part of the process, but also view the resumes of people who are applying for this position?
So my suggestion is that you come visit the office and we sit down and we walk you through what these people do. And so before you form an opinion about there being surplus, we give you a chance to learn about what the work is, what the scope of the work is, so you can make an informed opinion. I would welcome you, if you can get time off, to be available for that. But it does seem to me that commenting that people are unnecessary without having a full understanding of what they do for a living seems a little rough to me.
Well, I do understand what you're saying, but unfortunately, Mr. Cerf, information that I know to be factual that I unfortunately can't indulge at this point because there's not enough time. Information that I know, gives me my already formulated opinion. But with that being said, can the board also have an updated organization chart?
We have done that, I believe, a month ago. We sent you an organization chart. We'll be glad to update it. Sure, happy to send that.
Ms. Carter?
So again, I asked this during the meeting and during my report. I haven't received a response. I would like to know if the board members could be a part of the selection process, and when will that selection process take place? I also inquired about Larissa's position, being that she's now acting as the Chief Talent Officer. Who would be filling her role that she was in previously?
We'd be happy to share resumes and get your and have you participate in the review process.
For both positions?
Yeah, I'm not sure which positions we're going to fill, but yes, we're still.
So when you say you don't know what positions, are you saying that
whether Larissa is going to replace herself in her former position? Is that, if I understood your question correctly?
No, I want to be a part of the process for the position that Kim just left, the executive director.
That's the one that Mr. Jackson was just commenting on.
Yes, and then I want to be a part of the process if we are opening up the process for Chief Talent Officer, and Larissa is included in that process as well as outside candidates. I want to be a part of that process, and I want to be a part of the process for Larissa's position that she was in and no longer, and I don't know the title of that. My apologies.
We'd be glad to include you in that process.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lewis, and then Ms. Baskin-Richardson, and lastly, Mr. Hassan.
So, I just want to go back to our focus. Our focus should be QSAT. And when we talk about QSAT, one of the departments that was the worst was our personnel department, right?
No, that's not correct.
Mr. Superintendent, you gonna let me finish, or you gonna keep cutting me?
Well, no,
Come on. All right. So, one of the departments that have been the worst have been our personnel department, our HR department. They have been the worst. They have been unorganized. They have not done what they're supposed to do. Auditors have came in, state people have came in and said that that department is a mess, right? So my question is to you, Mr. Superintendent, since the state that came in and said that department is a mess, the auditors that came in and said that department is a mess, it done hit headlines in the newspaper not once, but twice as being a mess. What is your plan to restructure that department so that next time CUSAC come around, we can do better in those scores and we will see improvement in that department?
well, happily, you have the answer to that question at your disposals because we have already submitted a district improvement plan, and one relatively small corner of that had to do with document managed within the personnel department. That was the only corner of it, as I recall. That was the basis of CUSAC. So you're and I say this with all respect, Mr. Vice Chair, your facts are simply inaccurate when you say the state came in and the auditors came in and they said that the personnel and HR department was, quote, a mess. There is literally no factual basis for that statement. With regard to CUSAC, as I believe we have reported, we are working with the Education Success Board and reporting in on progress towards the state's next visit, which is scheduled for, I believe, May, if I recall correctly. But I do not want to answer your question in a way that validates your statement because it's simply false.
Ms.
Can I please. Let me go back, please. Please. You don't. Okay. You don't have to literally say the words "the department is a mess" to say that the department is a mess, right? In two different occasions, we had it hit the press that department done messed up. Two different occasions. One time when a person got paid when they wasn't even employed in this district anymore. Another time is when documents that the state was looking for, they couldn't find on people getting hired. They couldn't find resumes. That is an episode of a disaster, a mess. So you can go around it all you want. When you look at trash, it may not smell, but guess what? It's still trash.
Ms. Basco-Richardson?
Yes, I just want to express my support for what other board members are saying. I think that an updated organizational chart is important. I would like to know under Vanessa Rodriguez what new positions were created, who all were hired into those positions, and what the job descriptions were for those particular positions, because the board members are correct. We have OVAC reports. We have corrective action plans. All of these things that came under the tenure of the talent office under Vanessa Rodriguez. So I think that this would be really an opportune time to really do a needs assessment, to look at every single office, every single job description that is related to personnel and the talent office, and to figure out what is actually needed to make that particular part of our district work as efficiently as possible with the most qualified staff, those who are able to actually be responsible for multiple areas, so that we're not hiring and I don't know, but what has seemed to me like a multitude of people to do what maybe one or two people, who should be able to do in those high-paid, highly qualified type of positions. So I'm requesting that we have all of the information that the board members have asked for, and that the district do a needs assessment on the talent office and personnel, and see how we can make it more streamlined and more efficient. Thank you.
Mr. Hassan?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just, for me, I'm really just wanted to get some information. I know a lot has been said about the fringe benefits, but looking at the NTU contract, the section about this supplemental fringe benefits fund says that this fund shall review on an annual basis the performance of the benefit provider to determine whether the provider shall be retained. The performance review shall take place no later than 90 days prior to the expiration, and that a written report should be submitted to North Public Schools and the union. So I hate to make any comments without having information. A lot's been said tonight, but from my perspective, I haven't seen any actual information. So I would like to have a copy of this last report that was submitted to be disseminated to the board members so that we can have an opportunity to review it. And I would also ask, there's another section here that states that this fund shall solicit for open market competitive quotes for the entire supplemental employee benefit package bargaining unit members. I would like to know when was the last time that fund actually solicited an open market competitive quotes, and if we can have a copy of those to be reviewed as well. I don't know which committee they should go through, but since the discussion is happening, it should happen with having the right information in front of us, and not what we see in the media. We need to have facts in front of us, so I think that would be important for us to have a real discussion, dialogue. And lastly, as it pertains to the hiring of employees in the district, I would just ask that we check with the New Jersey School Boards Association in regards to how involved we can be with that process as board members, because there is some ethical guidelines that prohibit board members from being involved with certain hiring practices and decisions. Like, I know for a fact, as a board member, we shouldn't be able to go to HR, as an example, and get a resume, a copy of a resume for an employee. So I don't know how that works. So I just want to make sure we're in good standing of whatever happens with that process. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Hassan.
I would like some clarity on that. It's my understanding that we can have resumes as long as some of the information, their personal information, isn't on that resume, as well as I was made aware that board members in the past have been a part of the hiring process. Therefore, I don't think that is something that's against, from my understanding, against any type of ethical anything.
So, if I can just speak to the former issue about the resumes. Under the Oprah law, boards of this member are residents of the state of New Jersey. You're entitled to the same protections as requiring or requesting information that anyone else would. You are entitled to a resume if you request it of an employee, not of anyone that has not been retained for the job. And that resume would need to be redacted for the removal of any personal pedigree information.
So, thank you. I think what Mr. Hassan is referring to, and I'm not going to go so far as to put it in terms of ethics violation or anything like that, is the NJSBA is excuse me, Ms. Cole?
I said there's an attorney right there that can tell you whether.
But you know, when I'm talking right now, you'll have your turn in a
Not
moment.
everybody else.
Yeah.
Well, stop. 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 Be nice. Because I'm being real nice. You asked me a question. I wasn't talking to you.
Are you ready for me to proceed now?
Let me think. I want you to wait on that.
So what Mr. Hassan is referring to is what is the proper role of a board, whether elected, advisory or not, and the proper role of management in choosing individual personnel. There's a very clear directive that there's absolutely nothing wrong in participating. I'm encouraged you to share resumes and all of that, but micromanaging the needs assessment of a management team and trying to pick particular individuals, I am quite confident would go far beyond the appropriate role of a board.
So that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking to be a part of the process. So whatever that may look like and the constraints that we can, I would like to be, as the chair of personnel, I would like to know, at least be able to see the resumes and be a part of the process. I'm not saying that I want to micromanage or any other member of the board wants to do that. Of course, we just want to be a part of the process in any way we can.
And I think that's entirely appropriate, and I believe we've already agreed that would be a great addition to the process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last person we have is Ms. Pascal Richardson, and then we're going to go into your report.
Thank you. Historical perspective, in the past, board members have been a part of the interview process, not a part of the decision-making process for employees, for high-level employees. So there's nothing new about it. There's nothing that, as I said, not decision-making process, but part of the interview process and then making a recommendation. Not participating in any discussion about decisions. That has been part of past practice. And so the other thing, Superintendent, I'm not clear because you didn't respond, but I am still without, and this is not an intent to micromanage at all. This is a request for the district to do a needs assessment on talent, office, and personnel. So I would like to know what your response is to that possibility.
So we have done needs assessments maybe by another name, as we are constantly, remember, we just took $75 million of cost out of Central. Every single department has gone through a rigorous, brutal analysis as a way to avoid having to go to the schools to take costs out. And so we have done, I think, what you would call a needs assessment of talent in every other department. And we're about to do it again as part of the planning process for next year. So we are very, very, very attuned to the need to reduce our central expenses to the maximum extent possible, because every dollar we don't take out of central, it can only come out of the schools.
Okay, so then what I would like to know again is, and not to be answered now, but if this information can be sent to me, what are all of the positions that were positions created under when Vanessa Rodriguez was Chief Talent Officer, what responsibilities of those were, and if which of those positions are currently filled and not filled.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, is there a motion?
So will I be able to get that information is what I want to know.
I don't know that the information exists in that form. We'll try. We'll try.
I'm sorry, you don't know what positions were created during a particular period of
We'll go
time?
through our records and figure out what changes to that department occurred on what date, and we'll get that information to you. What additions and subtractions. I think I can say with a lot of confidence that there's a lot less now than there was 12 or 24 months ago. So I think you'll find that under Ms. Rodriguez's leadership, that department has experienced a net reduction, but I'm going to have to find that out for you and get it to you.
So I agree, there may be less people, but then there may be more high-paid positions. So I'm really interested in the information I
Sure,
asked
we'll
for.
get that information to you. I'm sure that's not true.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to accept Ms. Carter's report?
Motion.
Second.
I had Mr. Lewis on the motion, Ms. Von Seck on the second. This is
The report was accepted already.
we didn't motion.
We didn't.
No, I don't have. No.
Maybe not.
Okay. So this is the Personnel Committee meeting report. It was from January 14, 2016, as delivered by Ms. Carter. It was moved by Mr. Lewis and second by Ms. Fonseca. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Okay, motion carries. Report accepted.
Lastly, we have Ms. Basquiat Richardson for the Program and Instruction Committee.
Thank you. This Program and Instruction Committee met on January 12, 2016. Attendees were myself, Antoinette Baskerville Richardson, Board Member Josh A. Carter, NPS Committee Designee Caleb Perkins, NPS staff Joshua Cohen, Maria Orozco, Marilyn Mitchell, Maritza Castillo, Kim Honick, Brad Haggerty, Peter Tremanian, Sharice Ward, Edward Yu, and Roger Leone, and Barry Erickson from the state also attended. I'm going to move over this at a kind of high level because this is a 10-page report, because program and instruction is a very detailed committee with a lot that we cover every month. Some of the topics that I'm going to say are going to be covered in the superintendent's report, so I'm going to really just go over those at a very high level. So first major topic, special education update. That is, I believe, probably going to be in the superintendent's February report, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but we did have a lot of detailed discussion on the current state of affairs of special education, that 17% of our students have IEPs, that it's just so much. Oh, so basically, we talk about needs that need to be addressed in the reorganization of special needs so that we can begin to be more in compliance, and that there is a pre-K pre-K through 8 7-member leadership team, and that that leadership team is assistant superintendents with the ED of operations, ED of school supports, ED of special education, which is Maryland Mitchell, and district feels that we are now situated to be able to much better address and meet the challenges of special education, such as the over-enrollment. There's going to be a focus on BD, the behavioral students, and that they're going to be basically focusing certain grades in certain schools, and then those students would then go on to another school for a few other grades, so that all of BD is not focused in a particular school. And as I'm saying, this is just an overview. There'll be a more detailed rollout next month when folks will be able to really ask all of their questions. Right now, they're in the process of rolling out a program around data collection and easy IEP to have a better transparency around who's writing the academic goals, getting general education teachers more involved. On compliance, the district is now operating under a corrective action plan under the lawsuit that said that we're not meeting our requirements fully, and I'm just going to kind of move forward on that because there is a lot more, but there will be a detailed report next month. Our next major issue, HIB report, that is in the superintendent's report this month, so I'm not going to focus on that. Again, the preview of the attendance data report, I believe, is also in the superintendent's report this month. The Park School level data also in the superintendent's report this month. So what I will talk about a little bit in detail, but still high level, is each month we focus on curriculum. This month we focus on instructional technology and 21st century skills with an update on blended learning presented by Joshua Cohen. And basically, he talked about how we're making huge strides in technology moving across the district. We talked about how our students are engaged in computer coding and how we're looking at that as something to really develop more in the district. We're trying to make it more user-friendly and meaningful to students, and to use the devices not just for testing, but to focus on digital learning. It's just so much. So we talked about part of Standard 8.1, integrating technology. I did just kind of say that, but how to connect instructional technology to better teacher strategies and the curriculum. Coding, we're working with 2 schools to introduce coding and robotics and to push in computer classes, and of course the outlook and the questions that we had was around how this gets pushed out to the district as a whole. Talked about strategies, digital learning initiatives for lead teachers who know the technology and the curricular resources, focus on vigor and inclusiveness, and goodness, it's just so much. Gonna just kind of move on that, but what we do need to do is to, I will get a date on when that is going to be pushed out to the entire board, because it is a lot of information that the whole board needs to be updated on. So I will speak with Dr. Caleb and find out how we can get that on the agenda so that everyone can be updated, particularly on that piece on the technology, because that is that's something that we all want to see embedded more in our everyday use in the schools. Our next item was resolutions. There was a field trip resolution, and the only thing I think of note in particular about that is that this committee had earlier in the year visited and had some discussion on revising the field trip policy. Some revisions were agreed to by the board. The committee is not finished with that topic, and we are going to basically request the field trip policies from neighboring districts, compare those to ours, and come back with some additional recommendations. In particular, our concern has been an ongoing concern around the district's current rules regarding the restriction of our students from going to recreational or other places where there are water or pools. And we will be revisiting that. Okay, there's there's another matter that we'll be voting on, related services and medical consultant, Power School software. We basically, the committee has recommended passage on all of these issues. Mr. Leone talked about the Elliott School Library, the amount of $250,000 for the library, basically with the new Elliott, that there was money allotted for the building of the school, but not for the library. And we are recommending as a committee that, that the board does pass that. Literary interventions. Dr. Perkins talked about Research System 44. And Dr. Perkins, if I leave anything important out, when I finish, I would love for you to fill in on that issue of anything pertinent. But basically, this is it is an addition to an already, not an addition to an already existing contract, but it is, in a sense, an addition to an already existing contract that we had, but there's a need now to update it. We originally passed it with the $700,000 threshold that we have had in the past. This is asking for a $950,000 maximum threshold because the company will be providing additional materials, and it will be providing and Dr. Perkins, I actually had the paper with all of the details on it, and I don't have it with me now. So, if need be, if there's questions, do you have that available? Okay. And so, would you like to detail it now? Not detail, but just overview in terms of just simply the specifics on the additional material and why the need for the additional amount of money.
Yes. So in brief, this is an effort to try to provide schools with literacy interventions so that all kids learn how to read, including in the older grades, focusing particularly on 3rd, 4th, and 5th, but also some grades in high school. It is being funded out of federal funding. I want to stress that. It's out of federal funding, and it is part of our district improvement plan. It is something that we committed to doing as part of the CUSAC process, that we would provide additional supports to address literacy achievement. The reason for the increase in the cap is that these programs are owned by HMH, Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, and they also provide some of our other resources. So by expanding our schools' access to these literacy interventions, we're exceeding the $700,000 cap and going over to $950,000, which is why we're bringing it back before the board.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we are recommending passage of that. We have a number of what we call smaller topics, but smaller just means we didn't need as much discussion on them, but they're still very important topics. Mr. Haggerty, he discussed the update on class of 2016, the appeals process for students in terms of the graduation. And again, this is very, very detailed, and I'm going to suggest, Dr. Perkins, that we, and I think I did suggest that we put out that we put out a one-pager that everyone can understand, Mr. Haggerty, so that people can actually look at it. I mean, I could read it all now, but it's a lot to digest, and I think a one-pager will help both the board and the community to understand what the process is, what the alternative process is. So there is a portfolio, and I'm just going to take it to the bottom line. There is a portfolio process that students can use to graduate. Right now, they can use that as an option to PARC or any of the other tests. However, in I think it's 2020, maybe, okay, that they will have to take the test in order to use the portfolio option. Right now, the portfolio option is available for any student. There are 3 pathways, so now they can work on the portfolio without taking any of the tests. There are 3 pathways for students who still need to pass the test. They can take ASVAB, they can take ACT, and I don't remember, and SAT. Okay, so basically the difference in the portfolio process that now exists and the alternatives that exist before is that we do not yet know what the bar is. We don't yet know what bar the state is going to set to establish what the passing point is for students on the portfolio. So, okay, so, and reading from my notes, the class of 2020 will only be able to use another test if they take PARC, and then the class of 2021 will no longer have the other test options, but they will still have the portfolio options. So, like I said, I think that one pager will help everyone. It will help families. It will help students to understand clearly what their options are. Our next topic was an update on community schools and the Transparency Committee. Community schools is a part of the superintendent's report, so I'm not going to go into detail on that. It was a draft that we were given. We did make several suggestions for additions to that report. On the issue of the Transparency Committee, we had a bit of a discussion on that because we were not aware, the board members were not aware that the original intent of the superintendent, and this is what was explained to us, that when Transparency Committee was suggested and the superintendent agreed to it, we were not aware that at least the 2 board members at the meeting in the discussion, Ms. Carter and I were not aware that the superintendent, as we were told, was referring only to transparency on universal enrollment, and we expressed that we had believed that it was transparency on a broader number of issues that we understood and that the community wanted. So I have been notified, and superintendent, I'm sure you can verify, but I have been it has been communicated to me that the superintendent is open to the Transparency Committee dealing with the issue of attendance and other issues where the community is looking for transparency. So I'm going to end this lengthy report at this time. So thank you very much. And as I said, a number of the things I mentioned will be in the superintendent's report or reported out in detail in February.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pascal-Richardson. The floor is now open for discussion. Any board members who have questions? Nope. Is there a motion to accept Ms. Pascal-Richardson's report?
Vote. Second.
Ms. Carter, second by Mr. Jackson. This motion to accept the Program Instruction Committee report is delivered by Ms. Pascal-Richardson. Moved by Ms. Carter, second by Mr. Jackson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? Motion carries. Report accepted.
Thank you very much. Next, we have the review for the agenda for the public meeting.
Just a minute.
Is there a motion to accept the agenda?
I have.
Is there any questions? Ms. Pascal-Richardson?
Yes. Was there a second?
No.
No, I want to.
Don't we need a second before we have discussion?
You got-
There's a motion on the floor, right?
Mr. Selinger tried to raise it, but then it seemed like the board member had a question.
We stopped
The
midway.
board wants
Oh,
to
so there's
proceed.
no motion on the
Yeah.
floor? Okay.
I would like to. Are you going?
No, go first.
I would like to pull out a resolution, and that's 12.23 on Elliott School Library, and I would ask that we vote on that tonight. 2-3.
Okay, is there some background on that, Ms. Carter?
Excuse me?
Is there some background on why this?
Yes, so the reason why I'm asking that we vote on that tonight is because it's my understanding that if we don't vote on it tonight, that the school will open without the library being completed, and that we need to vote on it tonight in order for them to have the books and to install everything, so that when the kids come to the new building on the 16th, that the library is up and running. So if the board members are willing to vote tonight, that would be great.
Thank you very much. Mr. Leon, you want to provide some feedback or add something else?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Jackson,
No, you have,
Ms. Baskerville Richardson.
Yes, thank you. So I just want to thank Ms. Carter for bringing that up. That absolutely was part of our discussion at the committee meeting that I did not remember to say. So I'm absolutely, as the chair of that committee, in favor of taking that vote tonight if we are allowed to take action at this meeting, that we can do that.
Okay.
So can we put a motion?
yes.
So yeah, I think your motion, Ms. Carter, would be to delete it from this agenda and move it to the present agenda?
Correct.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, the second by Mr. Hassan. All board members in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed or abstain? Okay, so the motion was to delete 12.23 from next week's agenda and add it to this week's agenda. Any other revisions on this?
Yes.
Ms. Baskerville?
Yes, so I would like to pull the charter school resolution and put it on the agenda for February because basically, based on feedback, Mr. Hassan had a number of questions, and basically, his feeling was that this resolution, and I think that you agree with that, Madam Chair, that this resolution was very similar to the resolution, the moratorium resolution that we passed in June. So I would like the opportunity to basically look back at that resolution and to clarify the difference in the two resolutions and to answer some other fiscal questions that Mr. Rashan brought up, and to then bring it before the Finance Committee for discussion in February, to then be on the February agenda to vote. Basically, it says charter school resolution, but the essence of this particular resolution is this is a resolution that speaks against charter school expansion. So I'd like to remove it from this agenda and put it on February.
Okay, thank you. Is there any changes?
Okay, I'm sorry, Ms. Baskerville-Richardson, so the motion would be to take
Second.
6.3, let me just figure out what the motion is. It's Charter Schools Resolution, it's designated as Recognition 6.3. You want to remove it from the January and add it to the February public meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, that was Ms. Carter. So the motion currently is moved by Ms. Baskerville-Richardson, second Ms. Carter. It's to remove item number 6.3 from the January 26th regular advisory board meeting and move it to the public meeting in February. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? Okay, that motion carries. So we're taking out item 6.3 and moving it to the February meeting. Any other comments on this agenda? Okay, so board members, do we have a motion to accept the agenda minus item 12.23 and minus item 6.3?
So moved.
That's Mr. Hassan, second by Mr. Jackson. This is a motion moved by Mr. Hassan, second by Mr. Jackson, to accept the agenda with the exception of items 12.23 and 6.3, which have been removed. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? That motion carries. We fix the agenda for next week.
General Counsel, I'd now like to make a motion to actually vote on the
12.23?
Yes.
Second.
That was Carter, right? Mm-hmm. The second? Okay. Okay, it's a motion by Mr. Hassan, second by Ms. Carter, to vote on, substantively on item 12.23, Elliott School Library. Let's do a roll call. Ms. Bascova-Richardson?
Yes.
Ms. Carter?
Yes.
Ms. Fonseca?
Yes.
Mr. Hassan?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis? Not present. Mr. Rashidi?
Yes.
Mr. Salinger?
Yes.
Chair Perrello?
Yes.
Motion carries. So 12.23 Elliott School Library passes.
Okay, next we have the board resolution. There is a resolution that Ms. Carter presented, which is resolution for Ivy Hill Junior Cheerleader Squad, and I would like her to read into the record.
Resolution is in recognition and appreciation, whereas the Ivy Hill Broncos Junior Midget Cheerleaders have consistently demonstrated talent, dedication, sportsmanship, and achievement. Whereas the Ivy Hill Broncos Junior Midget Cheerleaders are the two-time 2014 and 2015 North Pop Warner Cheerleading Local First Place Champions. Whereas the Ivy Hill Bronco Junior Midget Cheerleaders are the two-time 2014, 2015 Regional Pop Warner Cheerleading second place winners, whereas the Ivy Hill Broncos Midget Junior Cheerleaders are the 2015 National Pop Warner champions in the Junior Midget Level 2 and Medium divisions. And whereas the accomplishments of the Ivy Hill Broncos Midget Junior Cheerleaders have resulted in local, regional, and national recognition that serves as a positive example to their peers in the Newark Public Schools and beyond. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Newark Board of Education does hereby commend and applaud you for your hard work, dedication, and accomplishments in the discipline of cheerleading in the great city of Newark.
Okay, that's on for next week's agenda, right?
That is correct. Ms. Carter, would you like to provide some feedback on the resolution that you read into as to the reason why you made the presentation?
The reason why I found it necessary to recognize the cheerleaders are because they are the only cheerleading team in the city of Newark that has that record, and I feel like it's important for us to recognize our young people who are doing positive things in our community. So many times we recognize the negativity going on, and so I wanted to let them know that us as board members appreciate their hard work and we recognize them, and we want to encourage them as well as other members in the community to keep on this positive journey.
Thank you very much, and I also encourage everyone that is here to come out and show your support for the entire Ivy Hill Junior Cheerleader Squad, which they will be in attendance at our next meeting at Central High School. And thank you very much, Ms. Carter. And next we have our superintendent's report.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Are we going to, I think we're waiting for it to appear on the screen. We have, for better or worse, a rather lengthy set of topics anticipated in some of the committee report discussions. I apologize for those who have to turn around and crane your necks. I'll skip the agenda page. Those are the topics we are going to cover. Quickly turning to this page, I did want to give you a quick budget update. Long and short of it is that over the course of the year, starting in July 1st of this year, more or less around the time of my arrival, we have identified approximately a $75 million shortfall between revenues and expenses. I last reported to the board that we had closed all but about $10 million of what we then were identifying as about a $65 million shortfall. So that gap had increased to about $75 million based on a couple of factors I'll be glad to go into if anybody is interested. But let me quickly get to the punchline. I'm now able to report that we are on track to close the budget in balance this year. I would like to commend my leadership teams, and especially like to commend School Business Administrator Wilson and her team, many of whom are unheralded heroes in this process. I'd like to thank our talent department for tremendous work in closing that gap. People find that laughable, but about $40 million of that was identified and executed by the talent department, including returning about $25 million in the excess pool to schools. So that's the good news, is that we have closed the gap. The challenging news is that we are looking at a roughly equivalent gap as we go into next year. I'm spending a great deal of time trying to organize a political initiative to get additional funding from the state. One of the things this board could do, by the way, that would be productive, would be to engage the state in a collective effort to organize around a request for additional funding. I'd be delighted to help draft letters or otherwise organize that effort. I can tell you that the politics of how one asks are much more complicated than simply saying we want to stop charter schools. They require a very nuanced approach to addressing our budget issues, but that's for you all to decide. But that would be a very productive use of the board's talents and energies. In addition to that, we are pursuing a number of very creative, aggressive, and challenging from an execution point of view budget initiatives. I mean, one of the reasons that I think we spent a lot of time talking about this Benecard issue is there's basically only two places to go, is to the schools and to our other expenses to try to reduce this gap. I am very committed to the proposition that we should do everything in our power to minimize our impact on the schools, and that means addressing a number of other fixed costs, everything from transportation to facilities costs to insurance benefits and so on. So we are leading a very comprehensive effort. We've identified 10 or 15 buckets, each of which has a project team against it to try to address that issue. We've talked about facilities. We've talked about one of the very, very important initiatives, by the way, is to get full documentation of our free and reduced price lunch. We believe we have significantly more children who are eligible for the free and reduced price lunch than we have documentation. That could be a very material difference in our budget next year, and we are, under Ms. Wilson's leadership, working to try to address that. We've talked about finding a way to convert some of our existing unused building stock into dollars and resources we could put against our existing buildings and the like. So that's a quick update on the budget situation as it exists today. A very creative piece of work that Ms. Wilson will address is the energy savings plan that I will ask Ms. Wilson if she would ever so kindly fill us in on that, please.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, members of the community. Probably about 2-3 months ago, we put before the board an approval to go out for what we identified as an energy savings improvement program, which will henceforth be known as ESIP. And the law requires, actually it allows public entities to go out and make energy-related improvements to your facilities, and you can pay for those improvements by the savings that you earn and ultimately be able to improve various large capital items in your district. The energy savings plan we put together was reviewed by an independent third party, and then it had to be submitted to the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities for review and approval, not just for the plan itself, but the financial viability based on the requirements set forth in actual legislation that was done in 2009 for energy saving programs. Our projected energy savings had to be verified, and I can't see. Scott, can you bend down just a little bit? For a third and final time after the equipment installation and commissioning. So at the time when we spoke with you, we talked about going out for bid for financing. So I'm happy to say that the district has been able to acquire financing of $12.7 million from Sterling National Bank in a competitive public process. We have the ability to borrow this money for 16 years at an interest rate of 3.3, which is extremely competitive based upon both the financial condition of our city, which is what they look at when they loan us money, and the market as it exists today. There will be semi-annual payments that will begin in January of 2017, and they will be paid from operating funds, basically from the savings we realize by the projects we will be doing. We wanted to tell you that the next steps are in winter of this 2016, we're going to enter into a public bidding process, which will continue through the spring. We want to begin construction in 2016. And once the savings occur, which are things such as lower PSE and G bills, and we are also looking to do additional schools. This first phase covers 6 schools.
Read the fifth line for us.
Covers 6 schools. What you see here is a listing of all of the types of projects that we will be entering into. The 6 schools are, in fact, George Washington Carver, Barringer, Arts High, Malcolm X Shabazz, Technology, Weequahic. And you will see that they range from, in the case of Barringer, from base lighting through air conditioning, all of the things that are major capital projects, which we have no funding for, and the SDA has not agreed to either pay for or to fund. That deferred maintenance has continued to have a negative impact on our buildings and continued deterioration. So we have to take care of the facilities that we are going to keep online and make them better learning environments for our students if we are to if we are to support academic achievement. So we'll be entering into this project, and you'll begin to see activity occur. Of course, as we bid these projects, they will come before the board for approval. Now I'll turn it back to the superintendent for an update on the Transparency Committee.
Ms. Wilson. For those with long memories, you may remember in my first public board meeting, these many months ago, I invited this board to participate in the creation of a transparency committee. My intention in that is today as it was then. I have been very struck, by the way, in the way that facts are sometimes repeated and narratives are developed that lack a basis in facts. And I've noticed over and over again in the conversations that sometimes when someone points out that a fact is not as believed, the reaction is to sort of throw insults or so on at the person who is trying to correct the record. I've always believed that everybody is entitled to their own opinion, but not to their own set of facts, not to wander into the realm of philosophy. But there's some things that are demonstrably true and some things that are demonstrably false, and I've always thought that we could move together as a board and as a community if we organize ourselves around building policy off the basis of a shared set of facts rather than on the basis of beliefs or conspiracy theories or other narratives. So my intention in suggesting that we create a transparency committee was to create an independent body that included members of the community, membership from this board, and from other stakeholders to take particular topics and review that. We didn't get a lot of take-up on our suggestions, so we have moved forward with that, and we're happy to announce today the formation of the Transparency Committee. Its intention, and I agree with Ms. Baskerville-Richardson's characterization, it is not limited to the original scope. It has a broader scope than originally conceived. It is to review policies that drive the work of Newark Public Schools, to monitor effective implementation of these policies, to audit outcomes of these policies, to articulate policy changes for consideration to better serve Newark students. The initial project, and I do stress initial because I think the It is the intention to broaden this into other topics, but as represented way back in July, is to take on universal enrollment, to research practices, to review quantitative and qualitative data that has emerged over the last several years, to provide feedback on way to improve that process, to make recommendations, et cetera. The committee will include, at minimum, the following individuals. There will be a community member chairperson, a member of this board, hopefully will volunteer for that service or be volunteered, parents, administrators, representatives, we hope, with data analytic capacity to help analyze the data. Our Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer, Edward Hugh, will be our liaison to this, and we are excited to move forward with that work. Depending on the topic, the committee may be expanded to include a pre-K representative, representatives of other public schools in the district, and so on. So that's where we are on that. We were also asked to give a brief update on the community schools initiative. This will be very brief. I think it was discussed at some length in the Program and Instruction Committee. Just to quickly recap, the resources for the launch of the initiative were secured from the Zuckerberg funds and others. There was a public announcement that the mayor led in December of 2015. We have established a partnership between Newark Public Schools and the city of Newark, that is the mayor's office, and the city more broadly. Dr. Wells has been instrumental in brokering this the launch of this initiative. She continues to have a leadership role in this, convening weekly cross-sector stakeholder meetings. Participants include Board Chair Perello, committee board member Antoinette Baskerville-Richardson, representatives of Rutgers University. We've also initiated school-based meetings with principals, teachers, and parents. The meetings have begun or beginning this week. On January 14th, we conducted a principal information meeting in which an application process was put forward, information was provided. Technical workshops are underway, and you'll see that this is all in service of schools that wish to be considered for participation in the initiative. Submit an application by February 1st, which would enable the selection committee to choose the schools, which will number, let's just say, from 3 to 5 in early February. Those are the key dates. There are upcoming dates that are represented on the board there, particular meetings in particular wards in service of that. So that is a tremendous amount of work is underway on that, so I've given you an extremely cursory update of that at the board's request. Similarly, as you know, we have launched the strategic planning process. Again, these dates are public, but let me actually, because the print is so small, let me just say that that there are a meeting schedule. There's a lot of components to this, but what we're featuring here today are the meetings scheduled in each ward. I had the privilege of going to the training session. As you may recall, community-based partner organizations are going to be facilitating those meetings, collecting community input. In the East Ward, the first meeting will be January 21st at Eastside High School. The Ironbound Community Corporation will be the organizing partner. On the West Ward, on January 28th at Westside, Newark Fairmont Promise Neighborhood will be facilitating that meeting. In the North Ward at Behringer on February 3rd, La Casa de Don Pedro. On Thursday, February 4th at the Central Ward at the Quitman School specifically. United Way of Essex and West Hudson will be leading and facilitating that meeting. And on February 10th at the Malcolm X Shabazz in the South Ward, the Strong Healthy Community Initiative will be leading and facilitating that meeting. We have engaged another organization to serve as scribe and support for the organization, so I'm pleased to say that that is underway. Turning to the next page, please. As you know, we are in the enrollment season. It's only as good as the information that people get and absorb. We've talked at some length about the really enhanced efforts to get parents and family members information so they can make informed choices about their schools of choice. As part of that process, on Saturday, January 30th, from 10 to 12, at Central High School will be a school fair in which all are encouraged to come and gather information about the choices available to them. Families are encouraged to attend, but we especially encourage families who are new to the district or who are new to a school, particularly pre-kindergartners who are applying to kindergarten and eighth graders applying. Eighth graders who are individuals who are applying to the eighth grade. There will be school presentations, student performances. We had a video contest, so the winner will be announced at that time as well. By statute, we are obliged and happy to give an update on various metrics related to security and bullying incidents, HIB in the vernacular incidents. If you turn the page, please. We use a electronic violence, vandalism, and substance abuse reporting system to collect data and to report all incidents of violence, of vandalism, of substance abuse, which occur on school grounds or during school events. The law is very clear about that. And you see the components of the report that include each of the major categories so indicated. Turning to the page, for those of you who are looking at a distant chart, the blue bar represents the data for January through June 2012, 2013. The light green represents the data for January through June, calendar year 2013 and 14. The dark green includes January through June 2014 and 15. You will see that in each of the categories there has been a reduction. The first category, again, for those who may not be able to make out the words, the first category are acts of violence, the second category vandalism, the third substance, and the fourth weapons. You see, as reported at least, the incidents of these are going down. I will tell you that I think there is some skepticism that would be appropriate when you take the actual numbers and expect absolute precision. Like in ComStat or like in all of the data reporting systems, it's only as good as the reporting. But I will say that I think the trend lines are clear and broad enough, so the general gradient, the general trajectory of a reduction to these events, I accept as true, although I'm not prepared to tell you that the number is 17 instead of 19 or 19 instead of 24. I don't think the data is precise enough to enable that. Eric Inhold is here, who will be delighted to answer any questions on that, our head of security, as we go forward into it. And we'll turn to page 21 and 22 and save the rest for questions on page 23, specifically on harassment, intimidation, and bullying, which is a statutory term, which is defined in your books on that page, which is page 22. Then again, we see the data shows a sort of modest reduction in incidents. I would actually attribute this as much to all across the state. You see these same trends when the law was initially passed by the legislature. There was probably an overabundance of reporting because schools are worried about liability for failure to report, and a lot of things that ended up not being determined, harassment, intimidation, or bullying, were reported in the first year. And so I think we're seeing more of a reporting trend than a an actual change in behaviors, but again, that would be hypothesis on my part. More details you can find on page 24. I'd now like to turn our attention, please, to the subject of chronic absenteeism rates, and this is something that I'm very pleased that the board has expressed tremendous interest in and paid a great deal of focused substantive attention to. There are very few, if you will, input variables that are predictive of student outcomes greater than student attendance, and the logic is pretty clear. If students don't come to school, they can't learn, right? So it's one thing that is something that we have an urgent need to understand, to analyze, and to improve upon as we go forward. We have looked at this. There are a lot of ways to cut the data. Let me tell you the way we think is most representative of the trends. We're looking at the number of students in each school who are chronically absent, and we have defined chronically absent as missing 10% or more of days. And because there are 180 days in a school year, that means 18 days or more of 185, I'm sorry, 185, I stand corrected. There are 185 days. There are 180 days required by state law.
Our calendar has 185.
Our calendar is 185, 180 days required by state law. We have 5 extra days to account for the possibility of blizzards and the like. Yes, so it would be 18.5 days or more would come out to 10% of the days enrolled. So we have looked for that. We have looked at K through 12 data. We don't have the data collected centrally in the past, although we do now for pre-K. The data is self-reported by schools via our PowerSchool application. We have included analysis for students who transferred into and out of NPS during the school year. Our data collection is sufficient to capture those data as at those data as well. So if you turn to the next page, please, here are the numbers. They're basically flat between 10-11 and 14-15, flat at a vastly too high number. Looking at this current year, 22% of our K through 8th graders are missing 10% or more of the school year, and 49% of our high school students are missing 10% or more of the school year. And as I say, there's not a lot to read in the trend line. Those numbers have been sort of relatively constant. Just a couple of observations that could be extracted by the data. Attendance varies by ward. The South Ward exhibits higher chronic absenteeism rate than other wards. The East Ward is the lowest. Chronic absenteeism are significantly higher at NPS and comprehensive high schools as compared to magnet high schools like arts and science. Most of the students who are absent more than 10% of the year are not absent a lot more than that. Considerably more than half are absent between 10 and 20%. And we are in the process of collecting the data from charter schools so we can report what the absentee rates are in charter schools as well. I don't have that information for you tonight. Perhaps we will as of the next meeting. The following slides, which I'm sure are unreadable on the screen, take each school and look at the chronic absenteeism rate in each of those levels in each school. So turning to page 31. The data shows us that chronic, to the next page, please. Thank you. That the data shows that chronic absenteeism has been a significant problem in Newark for a long time. We are working to fundamentally change our approach to attendance. I look forward to collaborating with this board to design and execute against improved ways to do that. That's principal and school driven. We are using school support teams. We're utilizing advisories to improve data collection and student contact. We're undertaking several initiatives that we hope will better target chronic absenteeism. I would like to think that the Community Schools Initiative, by its very nature, will lead to better attendance at the schools that participate. in that, and I would recommend that the strategic plan we're developing isolate absenteeism as a specific strategic initiative to focus on. Turning now to Dr. Perkins, who will give us an additional level of information around the park level results. Dr. Perkins.
Thank you. So continuing on what we were sharing in December on the district level data, as we committed, we wanted to come back and share the school level results for the spring 2015 park tests. So as we shared at the Program Instruction Committee and how we got input from them on how best to share this information, we want to just share initially some notes on this. The New Jersey Department of Education plans to release all data for all schools and all districts by the end of this week. That is not out yet, but when it is, then we will have access to every school, all charters, all NPS schools, as well as districts and schools across the state. They have released the participation rates, which I know is of great interest to the Program Instruction Committee, among others, for the state, and they will release it for the district, but have not done so yet. And again, as the superintendent shared, we might have updated information by the Tuesday regular meeting. And then in terms of some of the questions that came from Program Instruction in terms of how we calculated the participation rate, I just wanted to provide a couple pieces of context. One, that those who took only one part of the test, there was two parts, the performance-based assessment as well as the end of the year. If they only took one, then they were not counted in getting an overall valid score for a school based on the state's calculations. So with that, we did want to share some high-level observations that we noted. Clearly, the most important part about this data is how it's going to help us improve instruction. So some very basic observations that we're still in the process of making and doing deeper analyses. One is that, not surprisingly, Magnet High Schools had a much higher rate of park proficiency in ELA and math compared to our comprehensives. That there were several outliers that we are looking into in terms of learning from, in terms of higher performance rates and performance relative to other like schools that we're also looking into. For example, Bard Early College High Schools, I should say, had particularly high results in ELA relative to the state as well as the district. Some schools showed relative improvement in terms of their performance compared to previous years of testing, including some of the Renew schools. Performance, the fourth bullet, performance varies by ward. Again, not something that reflects what we saw with previous testing, particularly in the north and east wards scoring higher than other wards. We do have some access to the existing charter data, and our preliminary analyses indicate that scores from those schools are overall higher than NPS scores, although there's a great deal of variation within those charters. And again, as soon as we have that information, we will include that in the full report to the board as well as to the community. Overall, we know there's a lot more analysis that we need to do to really get at what this data means and how we can help use it to improve instruction. And we look forward to coming back to the board when we get more information from the state, including data analysis as well as other pieces. Based on input from the Program Instruction Committee, one of the input was that what would be most useful is to provide the alphabetical list of schools and how they did on park, and that's what you have captured in these very dense slides over the next few slides. So we will share this, as the state will as well, as I shared. But I wanted to walk through just a couple points just to orient folks to the data, just as we did with the district level data. So just as you can see on the left-hand side, this is the alphabetical list of K-8 schools, and this is from A to G, and it includes the number of students registered, which was a request from the Program and Instruction Committee to include, the number of valid test scores of that number, and then there's two numbers for each of the scores for ELA and math. The first is the percentage of students who approached, met, or exceeded expectations. And the second is the percent met or exceeded expectations. To be clear, to be proficient on park, it is just getting to met or exceeded levels 4 and 5. And to refresh your memory, the district's level of proficiency across all grade levels was about 22% for ELA and about 18% for math. We include the level 3 because those students are still, as has been shared, very much in the ballgame and are very close to reaching park proficiency. And we're very encouraged by the relatively promising numbers in that level 3. And so just to, again, walk you through a specific data point, we have Chancellor Avenue, one of the original Renew schools, has 359 students that were registered. 335 had a valid test score. 37% of those were at the levels 3, 4, and 5, and 16% were at levels 4 and 5. Again, obviously indicating a lot of work to be done, but also it's important to note that relatively speaking, these results show an improvement for Chancellor compared to other schools in the district compared to previous state tests. If I could go to the next slide, please. So to continue the alphabetical sharing, this continues in the K-8 piece. We have the same information for H through N, and just to highlight one again to help orient folks to the data, if you look at Tubman, 206 students were registered, 152 had valid test scores, 51% at levels 3, 4, and 5, and 28% at level 4 and 5 are proficient, which showed an improvement relative to their fellow district schools compared to previous state tests. We can go to the next slide, shows the schools from for K-8, O through W, and I'll just call out one more to help orient folks to the data. Sussex Avenue on math, we had 322 students registered, 295 with valid test scores, 49% with 3, 4, and 5, and 24% at 4 and 5, which showed a remarkable improvement in how they were addressing math instruction there. And finally, the last two slides are for high school. And I just called out two, one I mentioned earlier. In terms of Bard Early College, we see that for ELA in particular, they got 62% of their students to reach PARCC proficiency, a very high number, particularly compared to the state, and 87% at the levels 3, 4, and 5. And if we go to the final data slide, and again, I know this is a lot of information, so this will be publicly available very soon, that technology similarly had a very high number, particularly for ELA, getting 60% of their students to reach proficiency on a very challenging test that we believe is a true measure of college readiness, and 85% at the 3, 4, and 5 level. So we obviously have a lot more work to do to share where we're going with this data that connects to our district improvement plan that we've already been working with the board on. And if we could go to the final slide, we believe we're on track to continue to share this information, the PARCC results. In December, as we shared, there was a lot focus on the district level piece as well as school level conversations. And in January, we're getting to the school level and including deeper conversations with parents and communities across the district. And with that, that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Jackson?
Madam Chair.
And then Ms. Fonseca.
No, Ms. Carter.
Ms. Carter, sorry.
Okay.
I kept hearing your last name over again.
So,
Mr. Jackson.
Thank you. So, just really quickly, and I know we've gone over this quite some time, but I get confused every time I come into a meeting. First, I heard it was 63 million, then 75 million, then I remember hearing 45 million. And then I'm just going to go through my questions, and then we can do the answering. But can we as a board get the clear number as to what our shortfall was prior to us reallocating funds and that sort of thing and making changes to try to fix that gap? And just to also add to that, when we talked about the talent office, up until the beginning of 2015 or maybe mid-2015, our BA was not in charge of our budget. And that, in fact, was the charge of the talent office. So when we look at who dropped the ball and or whose responsibility it was, unfortunately, the person who is statutorily obligated to deal with our budget wasn't dealing with our budget due to the previous commander-in-chief. So I just want to make sure that that point is very clear. Moving forward to the Community Schools Initiative piece, if we can we get a more detailed report on the Community Schools Initiative? I would be very much interested in finding out more about it. What was the district's stance on it, and how are we going to move forward with that? And possibly the last question for right now. We talked about security, and we have the EVVSA definition, the Electronic Violence, Vandalism, and Substance Abuse Reporting System. Now, I don't want to sound crazy, but what is that? Is that a computer system, or is that a, if I can?
It's a state form used to report to the state. We're mandated to report twice annually to the state, and there's certain criteria that fall within the guidelines of that report: vandalism, violence, substance abuse, and weapon-related offenses.
Okay.
So those are the major categories relative to the report, but that's the title of the report. It's filled out, hard copy at a district level, and submitted electronically to the state.
Okay, and this lets us know how many incidents we have per year in that case?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and I believe that was it for now.
Then Ms. Carter? I have a question in terms of the HIB report. With the district of this size, it's hard for me to believe that these numbers are accurate. This report is stating that we have about 140 cases. Okay, here it goes. 145 cases of violence. That's the highest number. And so we know that this isn't accurate with a district of this size. I would like to know, what is the district going to do to assure that we have a handle on this situation? We know that there are a lot of things occurring in our schools in terms of vandalism, violence, weapons. The reports we get on a monthly basis shows that these things are happening. So what are we going to do to make sure that this is being reported and make sure that we investigate these situations and that our students are safe?
So we definitely took the feedback from the Program Instruction Committee very seriously. And one initial piece, there is the training that we do provide to everyone in terms of what in fact counts as that the definition, and therefore people are their legal responsibility or the ethical responsibility to comply with that. On top of that, though, given the input from program instruction, we are going back to the data and looking to see where there are outliers, to see how it connects with other data points, such as attendance, such as other things that might indicate where these numbers might be off. Per your point.
Is there a person in the district that is in charge of the training for this, or making sure that this is reported correctly and investigated?
Yes, there are designees on both the K-8 teams, K-8 as well as the high school teams.
Who are those people?
Karen Fennell for the high school network and Anita Ziad for the K-8 networks. In connection with, obviously, Deputy Superintendent Brad Haggerty and Deputy Superintendent Peter Ternami.
May I ask a clarifying question, please? So, by the way, I agree with your characterization that some of these numbers appear to be implausibly low. I agree with that. But you referenced reports that you say. So, can you be more specific, or maybe offline be more specific which reports from which you're drawing your inference? I think I heard you say you see weekly reports or monthly reports that lead you to think the numbers are higher.
I think Ms. Carter went back and forth between violence and vandalism and HIB, because first you started talking about HIB and then you switched to the vandalism numbers. So in terms of the violence and vandalism reports, the board does get monthly reports of all incidents that have been reported, and these numbers are drawn from those monthly reports. I think if I'm right, Eric, some of our reports contain items that may not qualify at the state level, correct?
That's correct. They may contain duplicate reports for the same incident, as well as, let's just say there's a fight at dismissal for high school. It'll come in as a VVSA report. It doesn't necessarily carry as a statistic because it occurred off of school grounds. Report deals with school functions and incidents related on school grounds. So if you're getting a report of at one location where there's a lot of fights on a consistent basis, that may be the case, but it may be occurring in the perimeter, which doesn't fall under the EVVSA reporting guidelines.
So one way to take that helpful comment is to go, I think that the data that we have, the reports that you're seeing, can be trued up with this, right? I don't think the issue is that there more is being reported than is happening, but I think there's a very serious question about whether there is completeness in reporting. I'm not disagreeing with your premise.
My second question is on this list of the chronic absenteeism. I noticed that we have Fast Track at 92%. You have Shabazz at 70, Newark Leadership Academy at 82, Weekway at 74, Newark Vocational at 74. Those are very high numbers. So my question is, what are the plans of the district to combat this issue? We need an improvement plan immediately. We need to have a detailed plan as what we're going to do to implement change in these schools, whether it be hiring back the attendance counselors. Are we reaching out to find out where 92% of the students at Fast Track are? This is an extremely high number for us just to sit back and accept this.
Well, I agree with that. I would just as a preliminary point, I would say that Fast Track and NLA are probably. There's actually an explanation in terms of the student served. Brad, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, just to break out those two schools as a subset, as you know, those are our two transfer schools, which are composed of students who have not met success in a traditional high school environment, part of which has probably been a pattern of low attendance. May have actually been a student who dropped out and has since re-engaged. So again, these are unacceptably high numbers, but it is not surprising to see Fast Track and NLA as the two highest given the student population that they serve.
So I don't think that's an excuse, regardless of the population we're serving. The numbers at Weekway, Shabazz, even numbers within our K-8 are pretty high. We have 38 at Belmont Ryan, 31 at Carver, 33 at Dr. E. Alma Flagg. I think those are high numbers as well for a K-8 school. And so I think even 5% is too high. We need to try to make sure all our students are in school as much as possible, and we need to have a plan as a district as to how we're going to combat this issue.
We agree 100%. So if anything that I said implied that this was acceptance of this, I think I used the word unacceptably high, which means we don't accept that. Many schools in their strategic plans for the current year, there's some district level actions in place, and there are many school level actions in place. Two that I would call out, again, I can speak on behalf of the high school network, are the inclusion, the belief that students come to school when there are adults that notice whether they're there or not, right? Specifically classroom teachers, specifically in some cases guidance counselors, but most importantly a role that we've introduced in the last 2 years, which is the role of an advisor, which is fundamentally in its simplest form a homeroom teacher, in its most advanced form an adult advocate for that student who recognizes and notices when that student isn't there and who takes very proactive steps when a student is not there. So and you can see it in multiple schools, whether it is the use of the advisor, the use of guidance counselors, teachers, incentive programs, peer motivation programs to get students who had lower attendance numbers to up those numbers month by month. These are all examples of efforts that are in place. But what I would say is I would agree with your grand conclusion, which is no one can be happy with those numbers. We do know that they're relatively flat over the past 4 or 5 years, but that's not acceptance of those numbers. There should be a great deal of discomfort with those numbers.
So you just named a few things that are put into place in order to lower these numbers, and you said they've been in place for the last 2 to 3 years. For 2 years, so clearly those things aren't working. So what are our new plans to get these numbers down?
I think if we were to look at them school by school, some of them are working. They may work, again, in one grade more than another. They may work even with one individual involved in the student's first.
So I'm looking for a holistic plan as a district as to what we're going to do to assure that our students are in school and not on the streets, and that they are accounted for so that we don't have situations that we've had in the past. So that's all I'm asking for, is for the districts to respond to me as to what our plan is to combat this issue.
Exactly right. Where's the plan? And what's the breakdown, male, female? You got to make a plan. It has to be comprehensive and holistic. We can't do piecemeal work. This is crazy.
Ms. Holder?
74% of, and he's
said it's been happening for 2 or 3 years.
Ms. Holder.
Was outraged about it. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Madam Chair. That's outrageous. We have a right to be outraged at that.
I understand, but now Superintendent has the mic.
We agree. This is a 5-alarm emergency that calls for immediate action. We also agree that the steps that we have taken, both those that have received criticism and those that have received plaudits, have not gotten the job done. We do believe that some of the initiatives that are in place are making substantial progress in some areas. I would treat this, and I agree with Ms. Holder, that I believe that this is an opportunity for this board, NPS, members of the community like Ms. Holder, who have points of view about how to address chronic absenteeism. It's time to come together and develop a plan and to improve upon what we're doing so far. I'm not here saying that we're satisfied. I'm here telling you it is an emergency, and I do think that some of the things we're doing, from community schools to advisories, are making a material difference in some places. I would also tell you that these numbers do not compare unfavorably with other large urban communities, but that doesn't mean that they're acceptable.
Ms. Fonseca?
I'm trying to compliment you, Ms. Holder, and tell you I'd like you to be part of the solution.
Absolutely, and I asked for that 2 years ago.
Well, here we are today. Okay, I wasn't here 2 years ago. I'm ready to help. I'm ready to engage you right now.
Ms. Fonseca?
I'm not sure how the system works. My kids are older, they're in college, so I can't speak to this, but I wanted to know, like, if these numbers are this high, are we notifying, like, I guess, like, child services to let them know that their kids aren't coming? Because if the answer was, not the answer, but you mentioned notifying, like, when they have an adult supervisor, you know, kind of like guiding their steps. We know a lot of our kids are coming from broken homes. We understand that, and that's why people like us are involved. So I'm asking, what are we doing to address that issue and making sure that somebody's on top of it? That's my first thing. And my second question is, are we working with the police department? Because when our kids are in the streets, right? And our police, I mean, I know there's a lot of crime going on and stuff like that, but between those morning hours, have we contacted or tried to work out a plan with the police department so that they're looking at our kids in the streets? Because I leave early for work, and if I see a kid that's on the street and I'm there after 9 o'clock and I see a kid on the corner, then I know he should be in school. So maybe that's a plan. I don't know if we have that in place, but that's something we should definitely work on, because that's enforcement. So I just wanted to know where we stand with that.
Let me throw out a couple things, and then I'll turn it to Mr. Ingold, who can talk to the police cooperation element. In terms of follow-up and immediately notifying, particularly families, when a student is absent, yeah. Every school, to my knowledge, basically has there's two forms. One is automatically the phone call that goes out saying, your child, it's 10:30, attendance was taken, your child is not present, that goes out automatically. That's a standard practice across all of our schools. You then have different attendance subcommittees as part of our school-wide student support teams, the SSTs, that will look at more of our chronic cases and develop, again, communication plans and engagement plans for those particular families in the event, again, that the automatic phone call, et cetera, isn't an immediate notification. In addition to that, I want to sort of highlight the use of trying to use different incentives and different rewards, if you will, both for students who may be in, we talked about chronic absenteeism again. We look at absenteeism basically in 3 areas, right? Students who are there 5%, who are present 95 to 100%, students who are present 90 to 95%, and students who are there less than 90%, which is the number we're looking at here. So I just again want to highlight the role of incentives along with follow-up. The third thing was that we do still have roles that are basically court-appointed roles that do follow up, that hold parents accountable when a student is not in school. That leads to potentially judicial proceedings to be able to hold that to the case. Then I'll turn to Mr. Ingold to just reference any communication and collaboration with the PD.
Thank you. Yes, we do collaborate and work with the NPD relative to truancy. If they see the students out during the daytime hours, they will bring them to the schools. In addition, we have our school safety officers that are employed by us. They are in the perimeter around the beginning and after school, actually during school, the beginning of school. Any students that are observed walking, leaving early, leaving midday, are picked up and brought back to the school. And we additionally assist with home visits. As the students are not in school and we have to conduct a home visit, we assist in that component as well.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, can I?
Yes.
So, thank you for that, but now, when I got involved here, I realized that we don't have enough guidance counselors, right? And so this is the plan that we have in place now, which you gentlemen mentioned, but have we done like some type of survey, I don't know, study to see what the difference of attendance was when we had actually guidance counselors, attendance counselors in the school to where we are now? Because I just think that I'm totally with that. If there's someone holding the child accountable, let's just say if the child comes from a home where the parent is working 2 jobs, right? So the parent can't be there when the child needs to go out to school. But if the child has someone that's on top of them, it kind of encourages the child to be there because they know that they're not just another number, right? So have we done that study to see what the difference is? Because I believe that when the child feels like they're being held accountable, then there's some type of, they'll be there. So maybe that's something we need to look into as we're addressing this attendance, because I think anything over 20% is crazy, especially in the size of our, the size of our schools and what's happening in this city. And I think that we need to take it seriously, and we need to start taking extreme measures on studying on how we can better this. And if we have to hire, and I understand that we're like in a tight budget and everything like that, but if we want to fix this problem, then we need to get back to the basics.
Mr. Superintendent?
No, you go ahead.
Okay, I just want to offer a suggestion, which is something that Ms. Fonseca said and Ms. Cole took the word off my mouth. I was raised in an old school family household where we had the truancy buses, we had the cops, pick us up and take us to school. We should start revisiting what worked in the past, because if, as Ms. Fonseca said, we have to start looking at years in the past and start seeing the rates of attendance, which I know for a fact that they were much lower because we had these measures in place. And back in the day, the truancy buses up and down Park Avenue, back in 2000 and maybe 7, they were very efficient, and kids were scared. I was scared because I didn't want to get picked up by a bus and then have someone call my mom so she could yell at me at the end. So we should revisit and go back to the old school measures. So that's my suggestion.
Yeah. So, another thing that we are doing is we are looking at schools that have much lower absentee rates and trying to extrapolate from their techniques and effort to see to what degree they're transferable. I think we have broad agreement that we have a major crisis, and that by the way, a lot of things that it has basically not changed. It has not gotten worse. It has not gotten better. It's basically been relatively flat over time at a very unacceptable level, right? So what I am suggesting is that if you will allow us to follow up, I would like to convene a working group of stakeholders, members of this board, members of the community, to come up with a plan for consideration by this board where everything is on the table. So I will commit to organizing that process and getting back to you shortly.
Something I want to say is I hear a lot of stuff saying theoretically we have this, we have that. It sounds nice to say it to us, but if those things were in place, these numbers shouldn't be as high. And I think part of it has to deal with we have substitutes in these schools. The school culture and the climate isn't conducive to students coming in. And so do we have an updated roster of phone numbers? Are we calling numbers that no longer are in service? What are we doing to make sure we're calling the right numbers? What are we doing to engage parents? I
feel like a lot of times you guys come in and tell us these are all these things that are in place. They may be there theoretically, but who's actually working tirelessly day in and day out to make sure these students are in the building? It's no way you can tell me that all these things are in place, yet we still have a 91%.
But we're not telling you that.
No, that is what they said, sir. They said that they call, that they're working with the police department. They said all those things, and if that is truly what's happening, these numbers shouldn't exist, so something's not matching up.
Well, let me try to be more clear. Whatever we're doing now is not working at a satisfactory level. I've said that. I'll say it again.
Not working.
Mr. Lewis? Continue.
I think Ms. Carter took everything out of my mouth, and I think that the superintendent did exactly what I wanted him to do, to admit that what they're doing ain't working.
Mr. Hassan?
Echo in here?
Yes, wow. So I think a lot of good points were brought up. One thing I would like to make sure we review as a board and as a district is this district policy that we have for attendance, absences, and excuses. And it kind of outlines a detailed process that's supposed to be followed on the school level. When a student has reached that threshold for absences, it talks about referrals to the state. It talks about interventions, developing a pupil action plan, making home visits. But I guess the question is, at the end of the day, what system is in place to actually make sure that these actions are being executed upon, and who's able to report back on these things at the end of the day? So I think as a starting point, at the end of the day, I think it would be important to obviously look at this policy as a part of this ongoing discussion that was just identified.
We can, but Mr. Hassan, we can have a policy, but if the district not following the policy,
that's what I just said, Mr. Lewis. I just said the problem is the execution on it. So we need to find out why there's an issue with the execution. That's all.
I think there's actually a lot of research on this, and I can't remember, not to confuse the two of you again, but whoever said that a fundamental source of low attendance, particularly in high schools, who students who are not feeling engaged by school itself, whether it's substitute teachers, whether it's curriculum, whether it's whatever, there are a lot of reasons that people don't come to school. It could be illness, it could be the parent can't get the child there because another sibling needs to be attended to for what reason. There are a lot of different reasons. But fundamentally, when you look at schools that have successful attendance levels, it is because not only the system's in place, but because the kids want to be there, right? And I'm just telling you that is as fundamental a cause of this as anything. And that's one of the reasons that I want to work with the group that I just talked about to try to figure out there are some schools that are nailing it, right? What's going on there? What can we learn from that? Okay?
Thank you. Next we have Mr. Salinger, and lastly we have Ms. Fonseca.
Yes, I just want to say, back in the day, like she said, 1974, I was scared of my father putting his foot in my butt. And that's what we should get the parents back involved first thing, and then work it out like that. Because that made my son go to school, my daughters, I was right on them. And that's what we got to do till this day. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
There's a lot of this there's a critical role for the family in this. I think everyone would agree with that.
Ms. Fonseca?
Madam Chair, I don't want to keep on reiterating this because we've all talked about it, but I just want to say that since these numbers have come out and the superintendent was so kind to admit that we have a problem here, I'm just asking that we're able to follow up before June. I'm asking, because I know we might get an answer like later on, but before June, if we can get an actual concrete plan, like what currently exists and what the next step is, so that we can address this problem, because I'm a mom and I understand the importance of every child being in school, and I just think that for those kids that don't have the assistance at home, that's why we exist. So I think if we have something in front of us, like the staff that's going to be responsible for it, like basically step by step, if we can have that, I think that'll be great, because we'll be able to use it going forward as we're entering into the season of enrollment. So if we can consider that, I would appreciate it.
Thank you. Ms. Baskin-Richardson?
Thank you. So my comments are not about this particular section. I didn't know that we were stopping after each section. I
No, we're
thought
not.
we were
We're
waiting
not.
until the
Please.
end.
Please, any
So-
topic. Yeah.
Okay, so my topic is back to the South Ward Community Schools Initiative, and I just want to make some suggestions that I think for the superintendent to incorporate into the presentation next week based on what I see here. And first is on the section that says accomplishments to date, South Ward Community Schools Initiative. I think that it's just a bit misleading where it says weekly cross-sector stakeholders meeting. It does say that participants include, but it just really does not give a broad enough indication that there are other folks who are involved in these meetings. For example, it doesn't say that there's district representation at these meetings from district staff, which there is. It doesn't say that the philanthropic community is at these meetings, and they are. And it also, which the first draft did, and now this one doesn't, list the community participation in the Alliance for Newark Public Schools, where the chairperson, Deborah Gregory, not that we have to put names, but is representative of that organization, representing a number, that represents a number of groups at that table. So I think it would be, particularly because this presentation would be made to the public and be seen by a TV audience, that it should be more.
Happy to do that. This
Okay.
is the defect of PowerPoint, right? We try to get everything on the slide. So if you'd like a more expansive inclusion, we're happy to do that.
Yeah, I think that that's important. And also the fact that even though it says that the meetings are convened by Dr. Lauren Wells, the initiative, as we, is being led by Motique Baptiste Good from Strong Healthy Communities, who you've contracted with or hired or whatever the arrangement is to lead this. And I think that not to say that makes it seem like Dr. Wells is the beginning and end all of this effort, even though she is integrally.
She is involved.
Yes, absolutely.
And more than involved. So we will have. We will address that in the next presentation by the person who's doing the presenting.
Okay, thank you. And then what I think is also missing, because I think that your presentation can also serve as an educational piece, because the board members will be learning more complete information about community schools, hopefully at a retreat that we're planning. But since this presentation is going to be seen by the public, I think there's some information about what community schools are is going to be very important for people understanding why they need to be involved, and that we're not reinventing the wheel, that there are some transformational community school strategies that are used nationally that we should be engaged in this process, and that they're aligned with academic research. And people need to know that we're not just sitting around pulling something out of our hats, that we're talking about curriculum that's engaging, culturally relevant, challenging, I'm tired, sorry. That there's an emphasis on high quality teaching, that it's about wraparound services, but it's not just about wraparound services, about high quality teaching, and not just an emphasis on high stakes testing. And then, as I said, the wraparound services and opportunities are key. Positive discipline practices. This speaks to what board members have been talking about all night. Authentic parent, student, and community engagement, which is a key issue, and inclusive school leadership. That these are the things that have been proven nationally to transform schools, and that these are the things that we're aiming for. At least those people that I sit with on the community side, these are what we're aiming for in our community schools, and that nationally these things have been accomplished by doing assets and needs assessment, by having a strategic plan, and by having community schools coordinators. Not that every community school has a community schools coordinator, but the research shows, the data shows that those that do are the ones that are successful. And we also know that Title I money now can pay for community schools coordinators. So I think that a lot more information needs to be given to the public, and that you have the vehicle to do that in your report. So I'm just asking that it be more of an educational piece than just a update that people may not even understand what the update is really about, or what the initiative is really about. And so people understand why the district and the mayor's office have undertaken this joint venture. What is the value in it? I think that the value is in these details that I've just outlined.
So I do actually agree with you. You know, we've been here since we're now in our third hour, and when we have 10 or 12, I don't know how many it is. If you look at the agenda page, we had a lot of updates to pass on. Maybe we can edit some of them out and spend more time on community schools. If your suggestion, your request is that we do a more comprehensive, substantive description of the history and background of it, we'd be glad to accommodate that.
Madam Ms. Carter? Now that we're talking about community schools, may the board members receive a copy of the MOU, the community schools MOU, if one exists?
The application that principals are filling out, or the MOU between the mayor's office and NPS?
And other stakeholders, yes.
I just want to make sure, we will get you all the documentation of that nature. I'm not quite sure which one you're referring to.
The one with the city, the district, as well as other organizations that are a part of it.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other board members? No. Thank you very much. Next, we have the financial item for presentation. I will defer to Ms. Wilson.
Good evening, everybody, once again. We have a rather long agenda this evening. Typically, the annual audit known as the CAFRA, Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, would have been presented to the board in December. This year, for all school districts, the CAFRA was pushed back to a later December submission date, which ended up having us presenting tonight the actual CAFRA. As has been the practice and as is required by statute, the board will vote next week to accept the CAFRA. The CAFRA is the annual auditing by an independent auditing firm, in this case WIS. We have our representative here tonight, Mr. Scott Cleland, who is a very qualified public auditor and will present us the findings from the CAFRA and the opinion registered for the district. Scott?
Good evening. And thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight to present the results of the 2015 audit. Before I get started, I would like to, I'm going to try to keep it brief because I know it's been a long meeting so far and there's probably a lot to go ahead of us. But I will be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. I believe you received 2 reports a couple weeks ago, probably after the first of the year. The large 400 and some odd page comprehensive annual financial report with this cover, and also the smaller 15 or so page report, which is the auditor's management report, which are both required documents. Also, before I get started, I want to just thank Ms. Wilson and Mr. Cannella for all the time and effort they put in during the audit process. It's not a couple-day affair. We're here for several months, from the summer into the early fall, and it's a very, very long process. And as Ms. Wilson mentioned, it was a longer process this year because what held everything up is that there was a new accounting standard that came into play this year that finally districts had to, and all governmental entities in New Jersey had to present their pension liability, which had never been available in the past. The good news about the pension liability is that you will not budget any differently than you do now. The number has always been out there. It was never readily available by the Division of Pensions, which now was made available and was required to be presented in the audit report. The audit report originally was scheduled to be filed on 12/5. The amended date was 12/21. One of the issues with CUSAC is if you file a late audit, it is a CUSAC exception. I want to let you all know that it was filed within a deadline and verified with the State Department of Education that it was filed on time. One of the most important components of any audit, as well from a CUSAC perspective, is what is the opinion that's provided on the financial statements. And in the district, the opinion is, again, unmodified or unqualified, which represents a clean opinion. That's consistent with where the district has been for the last several years. I don't think there's been anything other than an unmodified for probably 10 years now. If you look at the opinion paragraph, which is on page 19, if you want to reference it later on, it's a one-paragraph opinion that basically says everything was in good shape, and it basically represents the fact that the district provided us with the information necessary to be comfortable that the numbers are materially accurate and stated correctly. Also, you will note if you compare this year's audit to last year's audit, there's a separate paragraph. It's called an emphasis of the matter paragraph, which describes the new procedure that came into place this year with the net pension liability. Just so you know, the pension liability relates to this Newark School District, which is basically your share of what the state liability is about almost $300 million between the state PERS as well as the Essex County School Board pension that you also participate in with some of your individuals. If you refer back to your report at a later date, page 17 is your Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting. That's a very prestigious award that you are one of about 22 districts in the state that receives that. And I'm happy to report this is the 11th consecutive year that this district has received that award. It's given by International Association of School Business Officials. And again, it's an independent review of your audit report, and then they render an opinion as to whether you qualify for the certificate or not. I think the focus tonight has been a lot on your financial position. When I refer back to the audit report, I usually refer everyone back to the C1 schedule. It's probably the most important schedule in the report because it shows all of your major operations, all your revenues, all your various expenses and how you spent your money against the appropriations, and then your bottom line. And consistent with what we've been hearing tonight, your fund balance did decline during the 2015 fiscal year. And at the end of the year, you do have some fund balance components remaining, but as I'll go over in a few minutes, this is the first year in quite some time that you actually have fund balance that's below the 2%, which is what the state really would like you to have set aside in an undesignated amount. Just to summarize the various components of what you have set aside at the end of the year, you have total fund balance of $34.7 million. Of that, there's about $5 million that's already been set aside of that, that's being utilized in the 15-16 budget, which has been part of the discussion and part of the ongoing budget that you're working with right now. Also, at the end of last year, there was $1.5 million set aside in the cap reserve account, which were funds set aside that could be used for capital-related items in your long-range facility plan. And I believe that those funds have also been designated in the 15-16 budget and are being utilized. So on a go-forward basis, there is one amount of money, which was an additional allotment of semi-ERA money. Remember, 5 or 6 years ago, there was some ERA money made available to all the districts. This district received about $802,000 of additional Medicaid assistance ERA funds that must be used in the 16-17 budget. And then again, your unassigned, if you were to be at the 2% level, there would be $17.3 million. Your ending fund balance undesignated that's not been set aside in certain reserves is right now $15.6 million. So there aren't funds set aside to be used in future years' budgets from a fund balance perspective. Some other items of importance during the audit process, keep in mind the state defers your last 2 state aid payments. They've been doing that for quite some time. That represents about $71 million of funds that you normally would have received by June 30th, and you don't receive until July. That resulted in a district having to borrow $30 million of notes to fund cash flow needs. And again, funding as we go forward has been a question mark in the state for several years, and I can't render a guess as to what the situation will be throughout the state in this year. From a management report perspective, which is separate from the numbers, there was one finding that raised up to a level that was more significant than the others and related to your Head Start program. Part of the Head Start program related to individuals who spend a lot of time working for Head Start. And in that program, and what we identified during the audit process, there were instances where the time and effort reporting was based upon a budget situation, a budget percentage as opposed to actual time incurred. And corrective action will be taken to make sure that on a go-forward basis, time and activity reporting is being done on an actual time basis as opposed to an estimate. In addition to that finding, which was again more significant, we had 8 other findings, some of which were repeats from the prior year. It's important to note that repeat findings have a different review process, separate from a normal comment. and they do affect your CUSAC because they do come into play in terms of points off for having repeat findings or findings of certain nature. With that, I'd like to just conclude by saying, again, your opinion is unqualified, which is the most important part of the audit. You do have issues going forward in terms of your budget. I was happy to hear tonight that the 15-16 budget has been closed, because that was a concern of ours when we were wrapping up the 14-15 audit. And with that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. I know Ms. Wilson spent quite a bit of time with finance last week, and going over the comments and numbers, but I'd like to open it up to the rest of the board and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Mr. Lewis, you have a question? No? Mr. Jackson?
This would be more of a comment. Okay, questions up? No questions.
Okay, thank you. Any other board members who have a question, comment, or concern? No? I guess you did a great job. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to go on the record and indicate that a lot of this work is done by members of my team, and there's one particular member who's here tonight. You guys don't get to meet him or talk to him very often, but his name is Pablo Canella. Mr. Canella, would you please stand? Mr. Canella is our executive controller and has been with us probably over 10, almost 12 years now, and does a really great job in managing our accounts, making sure we have sufficient cash flow to pay the bills, making sure, and one of his major responsibilities is also managing the audit process, which takes several months. And I will tell you that I couldn't do it without him. So I want to say a personal thank you.
Ms. Bass, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Pablo, for all that you do.
Sorry, I was slow.
And now we have
Question?
Ms. Baskerville Richardson.
So, quick question, can you I'm sorry, I'm got a little too comfortable here. Can we have an explanation as to why our annual legal costs exceeded 130% of the statewide average per pupil?
We're sued a lot. I mean, I'm not trying to be facetious here. We have an obligation, obviously, to represent not just actions that are initiated against the district, but also, as you may know, under the direction and leadership of Loretta Sante, who is our Director of Labor Relations, we actually also represent employees in various cases. So what the legal fees speak to are grievances that might be held internally, as well as a lot of the litigation. What I would highlight here with that observation is that while we have had this pattern for 3 consecutive years, I do very openly acknowledge that we've produced a cap each year with a plan to seek to reduce our legal expenses as much as possible. So we are very, under my office, I try very much to settle cases appropriately to ensure that we minimize our exposure levels, and I would submit that I do see that downward trend happening. It's not happening as quick as I would like it to, but I would suggest that, or I would represent that this time next year we'll be in a better position with respect to the total legal fees that we probably will have, because there's sometimes cycles to litigation, and as you can resolve them, then you see some very direct impacts.
So you spoke to the last 3 years, which I think that's the amount of time you've been with the district, Ms. Hitchcock. Is that what you were referring to?
Yes, believe it or not, May 29th of 2016 will make 4 years.
Wow, thank you. So I guess what I'm interested in knowing is, was there can't talk at night. Was there an acceleration of the amount that we spent on legal fees over the last 3 years as compared to prior years? Do you know that, or Ms. Wilson, can we get that information?
Well, I don't have all the numbers now. I mean, let me first offer this, and again, I can, speak to the best answer I can give today. I can clearly prepare those numbers and submit it and give a report to the subcommittee, the legal committee, but very, very broadly, as the district has diligently sought to ensure that we have personnel in our pedagogical area, to the best of their skill set. We have had many cases that have, rendered litigation to that we have to be responsive to with respect to matters that just put us in court. So the short answer is I don't have a number to share with you. I wasn't prepared to make commentary specifically. I can gladly get those numbers. All of this is in our database. It's very transparent. Everyone can, OPR cases that are in the public domain. So it's just a matter of I can pull that together if you desire. I can report it out to the legal committee, which I would render would be the most appropriate, I think, way to share it with the board. Or if you wanted me to do it in a different manner, I'm open to that.
So can it be shared with the Finance Committee also?
Certainly,
Because
of course, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Scott, you had something you were going to say?
Yeah, I think you're referring back to the last 3 years. Prior to that, it wasn't a requirement to be looked at from the audit perspective. So
Thank you.
That's probably why you only see it in the last 3 years. It may have been that way before that as well.
Thank you.
But the state has initiated the auditors and asked them to take a look at that.
Thank you very much. Any other board members? No? Next, we have public participation.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the public participation portion of the evening. As a reminder, time limits for all speakers are enforced. There is no sharing or granting of speaking time to others. Speakers must be present when their name is called. All speakers are required to give names and addresses. The public participation portion of business meetings limited to 10 speakers, first come, first serve. Examples of unacceptable behavior that are not permitted include but are not limited to naming district employees, and engaging in personal attacks, slurs, excessive loudness, calling out, yelling, generally disruptive behavior, attempting to disrupt the meeting, or inciting others to do so. Public participation at the board meetings is intended to allow individual members of the public the opportunity to address the board and administration on issues of public concern, not as a forum for two-way dialogue with the board or district officials. The superintendent or designee or Madam Chair may respond to questions either at the end of the session or responses may be provided at a later time. The superintendent or chair may interrupt any speaker or terminate any individual's speaking privilege if the speaker's comments are disruptive or obscene. An individual may be cautioned that a personally directed statement may be slanderous or defaming, and the individual may be liable for his or her statements. Attempts to hijack or filibuster the proceedings, repeated interrupting or badgering the board members or district officials, repetitive and truculent speech, or disregard of the rules of decorum are not tolerated and may subject the individual to removal from the meeting. If necessary, the meeting may be adjourned.
Thank you very much. First speaker is Ms. Denise Cole.
I have a question. At the, on the agenda, you guys didn't mention it, but I know last hearing, you didn't have the section where you voted on before for us to speak on the agenda item. Is that going to be put back on for this hearing? I mean, are we going to follow that again, that we get 30-minute session for the speak towards the agenda item, and then when the public hearing portion come, we get 3 minutes for the public hearing? We canceled that last time.
What we did was we moved the public participation for everyone to speak prior to. So if in the event they want to discuss something about the agenda, that's their moment to talk about the item.
Okay, but how you voted on when I was here, and you guys voted that it would be two portions. One would be you can speak on the you can speak to the agenda items, and then it'll be the separate.
We eliminated that, and that's why we moved it up.
Okay, when did you vote on it to eliminate that?
That was done for the month of September.
Okay.
Where we moved the agenda portion up, and everyone spoke at the same time.
I know you said you were going to do that, but no vote was taken on it. Everybody just agreed that it was going to be done that meeting. You did vote to have two separate portions where you actually took a vote, and that's the way it was supposed to be. That was supposed to be the outline. But at one meeting, you said we decided that we weren't going to do it right this time because of the amount of agenda items. You never said you took a vote to not do it anymore. So I just wanted clarity on that. So we only going to have one public participation part?
Yes.
Okay. The second thing I just want to make comment to is about the chronic absenteeism. I went to the conference they had over at the school in North Newark, and one of the issues why we have chronic absenteeism is the fact that when One Newark was developed, One Newark sent kids out of their district, and then they sent kids out of their district enough where they don't meet the 2-mile radius where they can get the bus tickets. I asked a I still got time because I asked a clarification on the public agenda part. Time. Travis usually do that. That's right.
May continue, Ms. Cole.
Okay. So one of the issues I think that should be looked at is the distance where they're denying families bus tickets. Because the issue is now, if you look what the governor did, he's cut back on people's food stamps who are already on unemployment. Which means that now financially, they're gonna have to make a choice between bus tickets to get to school and bus tickets not to get to school. And the biggest problem that you have with the chronic absenteeism, and I disagree with them that these numbers have been stable. He ain't been in this district long enough to say that. He was the commissioner, so I don't believe that because I taught in the Newark Public School System before. The issue is, you need to revisit that policy, and you need to give everybody that lives a mile away from the school bus tickets so that they can get to school. Because our families in this ward, I want to dispel that we so dysfunctional that our kids don't go to school. No, we're not so dysfunctional, our kids don't go to school. It was the One North plan that made everything in this community dysfunctional. Yet they don't want to admit that it's that One North plan that made everything dysfunctional so our children can't get to school. So, Madam President, maybe that policy that Hassan brought up, that policy is, the procedures in it is outdated so they can keep making excuses, because that policy was in existence when we had guidance counselors, when we had attendance counselors, and when we also had truancy. Okay, so we had a three-pronged way that we kept children in school. So when he say the attendance rates was steady, he keeps inferring to things that he has no knowledge of in this community. So those are things that you need to look at for our chronic absenteeism. And the last thing I want to say is the park exam. Please stop coming here trying to make like we did so well on the park exam, because everybody in the state failed it. It was all over the news and everything. Those are failed test scores, period. And there's no way you make a failure look like a success. And they come here and try to make a failure look like a success. And they only do it in our community because it's allowed. The last thing is, please do a letter for him to resign immediately and do a severance package so that his contract can be voided and we can choose a superintendent who look like us, who care for our children in this community.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cole. Next, we have Ms. Rosalind Edgerton. Please proceed.
I have some things I want to share with the board and the committee. Okay? Pass them out.
Ms. Jones.
Good evening. Do you need help, ma'am? Okay. What? No, I'm going to stay for 5 more minutes. Can I see the list? I didn't even see the list. Where is this Miss Edgerton? Good evening.
Okay, good afternoon. Good evening.
Good evening.
Sir.
Good evening. Good evening.
Board members and guests. My name is Rosalind Edgerton. My home address is 119 Arlington Street in the city of Newark. I wish all of us a nutritious, healthy 216. I'm here about food served to our children in elementary schools. When our children in elementary schools, when I heard the cold weather today, I wasn't going to come. But then I heard on the 6:30 news this morning that First Lady Obama spoke out about the quality of food in Washington's public schools. That changed my mind about coming tonight. Thinking about the long journey of the Robinson and Obama families from the slave house to the White House, I knew I had to be here. I'm sure there were school staff that believed the Robinsons and President Obama would not make it, whatever that means. look at them tonight, from the slave house to the White House. On June 5th, I took my great-nephew to Quitman Street School. It was the coldest day of the year. I was shocked. The students were given cold cereal for breakfast. I came home, called the superintendent's office, and was given the name of the food director. I called and spoke to her assistant and was told the name of the person who handled the school. I gave my name and concern and telephone number and asked to have one of them call me. To this date, I have not received a call. That's when I started to take what you see now out of the garbage of Quitman Street School. I told Principal Glover what I was doing, and I told the head of the cafeteria because I planned to come here tonight about my concerns. In the past, the 2 bags that you see is from the 6th and the 8th breakfast. One is from lunch, the one with the hot dog. I made copies of all of these for you, so you can see the food that is served on a daily basis. Most of it, yes, a lot. Mr. Jackson, when you were a student, you often talked about the quality of the food that was served in the high schools. Okay? When you look at these schedules for the month of January, most of the diet is the same every single day. You're talking about kids coming to school? This could be one of the reasons, okay? I'm told that the carbs and everything is what you should look at. I'm sorry, I wish I could finish this. Because when you look at the carbs on the mini pancake thing that is turning around, the carbs was 35, sodium was 320 grams, okay? Sugar was 11 grams. That little box of raisins was 31 grams, the sodium was 10, and the sugar was 29. The totals for that day, for that breakfast, was 66 grams. The sodium was 330 grams. And the sugar was 40 grams. I'm also concerned about that plastic that goes around when it's melted. What is the chemical breakdown in that food? Okay? There's many reasons why our children are having issues in schools. The next one, I'm trying to get finished.
Your time is up.
But one of the things that when you look at the menus, you'll see what I'm talking about. But remember, the current representatives came from the slave house. I'm talking about the president and his wife. They came from the slave house to the White House. So I love this. Don't count our children out. Make sure they get some kind of healthy food. Rutgers now has opened a nutritional school in New Brunswick. They may be able to help you. But what you're serving the children, when you look at this, is horrendous. And somebody always make big money off of what we call poor children. They're not poor. We're wealthy because we make billionaires, okay?
Thank you very much, Ms. Rosalind.
Understand that.
Yes, please.
Yes, we are.
And they don't, and most of them don't eat it, they throw it out.
They throw it out. Right, I don't blame them. I don't blame them.
My granddaughter doesn't even eat.
No, I don't blame them.
To be brief, and I'm quite happy to have a more extensive conversation with you, and I'd like to know who you spoke to in food services, because
I left my name and telephone number.
that's okay. I'll speak to you.
I didn't speak to anyone. They didn't call me back.
All right. My number is 973-733, I'll give it to you again, 8467. It's always been available should you not get resolution from my direct reports. So let me speak to the menu. The menu I'm looking at is, on breakfast, we do a 1-week cycle menu, and it looks like on lunch, we do either a 2 or a 3-week cycle, because there's a holiday in here and I can't see. What I should say to you is that the products that we use in our lunch and breakfast program have a specific labeling, which is called CN, Child Nutrition Labeling, which means that there is a reduction in the amount of salt. No, this is not a question. There's a reduction in the amount of salt, sugar, and other additives. The pancake product, I will admit, has 320 grams of sodium. You are correct. However, it has 8 vitamins and minerals, so it's enriched. It's made from whole wheat flour. Let me finish. And it has no high fructose corn syrup. Okay?
Let me show you.
I read.
That's a mislabel.
No, it's not a mislabel.
Sorry.
Excuse me. Read this.
I did read that. I did read that.
What is fructose?
Fructose is a natural, it's a natural sugar. No, fructose is a naturally occurring sugar. Sucrose is a high sugar and a processed sugar. Cornstarch is a product, it's a binder. Okay? So we can discuss the nutritional value because our menus are assessed. The cereal products are 1/3 less sugar. So while it says Fruit Loops, let me finish. While it says Fruit Loops, it's not Fruit Loops you buy in the store. So this is a conversation that requires more time. So I would be happy to sit and have that conversation with you and to talk about the products that we use. Raisins are a natural product. They will have sugar naturally occurring. They are a source of iron and a source of fiber.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wilson. Our next speaker is Ms. Susan Sternby. She's not present. Next, we have Jeanette Campbell. Not present. John.
I don't serve garbage.
Nancy Gianni.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but I have to. My name is Nancy Gianni. I'm a teacher in Newark Public Schools, a first grade teacher. I'd like to address some of the comments regarding the prescription plan that's being changed and use some of your words, Commissioner Cerf. First, as a teacher, I always put my children first, even before my own family. I'm here now. During the school year, I have no life. It's my choice because my care for my students desperately. The contract, first before anything, the contract was the prescription plan was a benefit that is negotiated in the contract. When you take out or decide to unilaterally change something that's a negotiated item, that is hurting all of us. Just having to deal with this. I don't have 60 days notice to decide what plan or what to do or to register or do all of this other stuff. I didn't get 60 days notice. This is a huge inconvenience for me because I'm spending so much time doing schoolwork. Just having to deal with this at this time is a huge inconvenience. I don't have any time to research this. I need to make an informed decision about what to do, and I don't have the time to do it. That makes me uninformed, and that scares the heck out of me. Right now, for the children, you keep saying for the children, how is it going to help me if I get sick and or I can't get my medication? Because something was changed and I wasn't able to do it. You're saying that the money that you're going to save is going to go for new salaries and supplies. Can you guarantee that that money is actually going to go to hire new teachers so that we can stop the overcrowding of schools? On one hand, you say it's a management prerogative to go ahead and change this. You use the words walking in my shoes. I'm going to ask you to walk into my shoes. Right now, this is difficult for me. The whole idea of even having to consider what's going to happen and everything and go back to change everything with all my doctors and prescriptions. We talk about the law, that the law says that you can do this, but, there's a class size law. And yet most of us are working with children that are way over our class sizes, what we're going to do. And I'm just kind of curious, is only the NTU members and the other union members doing this, or are the people that are working at the NPS or your staff, are you also changing to the same plan, Discern Line? The bottom line, and again, I'm going to use some of your schools, I don't feel valued as a teacher. When the NPS takes a decision like this and violates my contract, I'm worried about the new contract that we're going to be negotiating. What is going to happen then? When this is in the law that says that it's supposed to be part of our contract, I feel disrespected. We talked about respect. Today we had a movie on respect with my first grade students, and right now I'm feeling very disrespected as a teacher, and I'm trying to be very positive about this. And when we talk about the attendance, just to change the subject for a second, when we talk about attendance, I've got children that have been out of school more than they should be. They're in that thing. I report it diligently. Without having an attendance officer, I have to call the house. Sometimes I can't get a hold of anybody or anything. I'm the first line of defense because I want to make sure my children are there. And the numbers are different, or the parents give me some bogus excuse. I can't drag them there, but I do know that when I was in the district before, when they had attendance officers, the attendance office would go and make a home visit. They would have a little bit more impact, a little bit more power than I have as a teacher. So maybe if we didn't have One Newark, which I know is impossible, maybe if children were going back to their neighborhood schools, we'd have a better control. But bottom line is, I don't feel like, and I go back to the negotiation, I don't feel comfortable. I understand the process of saving money. I'm all for saving money, but doing it in a more proper way would really benefit.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gianni.
I actually have a question for you. Can you explain, we've heard a very impassioned plea about your concerns and interests.
Yeah.
Could you explain to everybody here how it is that paying more for the same benefits when that more is going to come out of school budgets is in the interest of children? Could you explain that to us?
No, we can't, because when you word it that way, you make it sound, but
those are the facts.
But I don't see, this is it. I don't know that to be a fact. I haven't seen the figures. And you do, and you're cutting me off.
Yeah.
But it was a negotiated item.
No, that's a different point. I'm asking you how that's in the interest of children.
In the interest of children? How about the interest of the teacher, that I am there every day?
I understand the interest of teachers.
Okay.
I'm asking you the interest of the children. That was my question. I'd love an answer.
How is saving money?
Where's the evidence it's going to cost more?
If you can show me in black and white, and if you can show me it's in the interest of the children, I will concede, because I put the children first always.
Okay, I can show that to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next speaker, Ms. Holder.
I'd like to see it too. I can read. Thank God. Graduated back then. Good evening, everyone, and Happy New Year. It's just so disheartening to hear some of this stuff. And I was going to say the food is absolutely rotten, Miss Wilson. My grandbaby, if my granddaughter doesn't, and she's in the 4th grade, if we don't cook food for her, she don't eat that junk. And that's just like, Grandma, that's junk. And the whole Benjamin Franklin kids are saying that. It's not just one school. I would say community schools, when we fight to get community schools, and we need to make sure that happens, I really would like to see the cooks go back into those buildings so we can have nutritional meals. I read that stuff. The sodium, I lost 70 pounds myself. Sodium and sugar is all that's in those menus. At 13th Avenue, I'm looking at it. Sodium, sugar, sodium, sugar, sodium, sugar. It's killing our kids. They're making bad decisions before they get to school, and when they get to school, we offer them junk. It is not right. There's not enough green in those buildings. I don't see salads the way I like to see and other things. We could do innovative things, spinach wraps. You know, I go into the suburban schools, they have options, real good options. Spinach wraps, you know, this and that stuff I'm cooking at home they have. You know, sweet potato chips. Come on, we're giving our kids garbage. And I have to say that. I don't know who negotiated that contract in terms of what choices we had, but we got to do better, because it's killing our kids. Look at them, the obesity rate. And then there's no avenue for them to get out and play. So hypertension, this is like Flint, Michigan, if you ask me.
Instead of drinking the water, we're feeding them food that's killing them. So, I mean, that's just my personal opinion, but we really need to look at that. We really need to look at that. We can't play this anymore. So when we talk about community schools, which I am for and an advocate of, we need to get back into those kitchens so that kids can eat the oatmeal that I eat for myself now, because I know that's the best thing to do. Cut up some apple and put it in the oatmeal. Kids don't want to eat fruit. We used to fool my own children in high school and all the kids in the neighborhood. They didn't know they were eating greens in their macaroni and cheese, but we put collard greens and kale in there, and they was eating it. They didn't know. They loved it. Didn't hurt them. Didn't kill them. But I'm just saying we are not innovative in what we're doing here, which is why we have chronic attendance absence in elementary school. That's a big problem when little kids don't come to school. And I know why they're not coming, because I see them. We beg officers at the train station, please don't give the parents a ticket, and they're trying to seek the kids on that light rail, okay, because they don't have the money. I see it. Let me tell you, I see it. And the kids whose parents are dragging their kids along because they don't have the money. We need to put the bus tickets. We need to have that honest conversation with New Jersey Transit to have the conversation. How can we make this happen like New York? In New York, the kids get a Metro card, and they're able to ride three tickets a day, 3 trips a day, and they're to and from school. I know that for a fact because I have friends that have children there. And they're living 3 and 4 blocks away. And one kid said, well, I'd rather walk, but it's fun to ride. Why can't we do this? If you want attendance, if you really want to get to the core of the problem, and the other thing is, Mr. Finance, Marquise, and Rashawn, we need to look at the reorganization chart. Because I believe if we look at downsizing what's happening here at 2 Cedar Street, with the Chief Talent Office and Human Resources, if we look at all those titles and responsibilities, I bet you could collapse some of those positions into 1 or 2, and we could get more money for our bank, so for our bucks, so we can get, instead of substitutes in George Washington Carver and the other elementary schools, which is why the park exams look the way they do. We don't have an 8th grade teacher there at 13th Avenue. We're minus school guidance counselors and other things. These are the things that make a difference in terms of the park assessment. We really have to do a comprehensive look at what we're doing and where we're going and why we're going. We're here because our former superintendent left a mess, and she should have been sued. But the other issue is that we need to get together, all of us, community, and some of the reports you're looking at, let us help you. We're going to start coming to those community meetings. Community people, we're going to find out when you're meeting, and we're coming to those community meetings to ask the questions of Brad Hagerty, why West Side doesn't have that program yet. We had a PTA meeting last week, and the principal and the Culinary Arts Department still couldn't tell us. You did not schedule with them yet, Mr. Hagerty? Why? The classes are supposed to start February. What's happening with that? The kids deserve better than what they're getting, and it has to be a certified class so they can get that certificate at the end of the day.
Thank you very much, Ms. Holden.
Because the sugar and the sodium is driving us all nuts, and tonight it's driving me nuts to listen to this nonsense. Let us work together in a real holistic way. We are able to articulate, we are able to read, we are able to drill down and analyze and use data in a holistic manner that will move us forward.
Thank you very much, Ms. Holden. Next we have Ms. Jacqueline Bostic.
My name is Jacqueline Bostic Calder. I live in the city of Newark all my life. I wasn't going to speak tonight until the superintendent said he stands with the children. Well, you need to buy the children books. Because in my retirement, I'm working with children, and I know when I was going to school, we had Fun with Dick and Jane, See Spot Run, Run Spot, and we had a workbook. When my children went to school, they had workbooks, they had math books. These kids have diddle sheets, and on the diddle sheets that have on the side telling them what to do. They need books to bring to school. If the kids lose to school, the parents had to pay, make them pay. My parents, if I lost a book, we had to pay. If my kids lost books, they had to pay. When I sat down there when I first started doing the after-school program, I was trying to help the young man in the math. When I realized he didn't know 1 to 20, he kept telling me 20 was 12. I wanted to cry. I went home. I wanted to cry in front of the boy, but it took me an hour. And I turned my head because the tears was coming. I went home. I have a daughter that used to teach elementary, and now she's a guidance counselor. I asked her, did she have any material? I asked my daughter who worked for DIFAS, do they have any material? This, and then they write backwards. They write the number backwards. Then today, the little boy came, he didn't know what an action verb was. No explanation. It just says, tell them to line the action verb. If they had a book, the book gives examples what an action verb is. Then he had to write a sentence, ditto sheets. I didn't have no ditto sheets. My kids didn't have ditto sheets. I bought notebook and notebook paper. They had a book that they had to write. So if you for the school, and these people making six figures, and they can't walk 3 blocks to Broad Market and see them kids standing there, I can. You need to buy books for these children. It's a shame. And one little girl couldn't find how many quarters was in a hundred. Kilometers. How is he going to learn examples of the kilometers if he don't have examples? These are ditto sheets. They need books. A book bag is for books to be put in to bring home. My son went to Artside. He had 2 sets. One he worked with and one he came home with.
Ms. Postek, thank you very much. Next, we have Dr. Wells.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Val.
So these are teachers.
I have to start with the food. Because I know that if I had children, I don't, but if I did, I wouldn't be serving them that. And I think it does get to some deeper physiological realities about what those things do to the brain and whether or not they actually create the brain states that are conducive to learning. And so I agree that I know this conversation has been had before. I've had it through work that I've done here before, and other folks have had the conversation about how do we get the kind of food in front of our children here in this city that is real food, right? Like, I'm at a point in my life where my metabolism has slowed down, so I spend a lot of time online trying to figure out what do I do to lose some of this extra weight. And some of these videos keep popping up that talk about how your body reacts to synthetic food, exactly right? It actually doesn't process it. And it ends up in your body as stored fat and all of these other things. And I know this because I'm trying to lose some of this extra stuff. And so, for me, cutting out whatever synthetic food there is, I work on that. And I think that that is a collective community conversation that really, really needs to be had, because we can't talk about healthy kids. We can't talk about learning. We can't talk about optimizing the conditions for children or getting their brains in a place where they're actually utilizing minerals and nutrients in a way that's going to make their brains be prepared for learning. Sugar does all kinds of things. Salt does all kinds of things. And so I would like to see us evolve this conversation in a real meaningful way so that all of us can say that what the kids are eating here is what they would be eating in our schools or our houses or when we go on vacation or wherever it is that we go. And that was not what I came to talk about, but it just resonates with me so deeply, because food makes us what we are, and if we don't have the right food, then we don't grow to be strong plants. So that's just my little point on that.
Let's have that conversation.
Yeah, I think that community schools. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm excited that we're having this conversation. I agree that there's a lot of education that needs to happen on multiple levels, both about what a community school is, what they look like in different places, how you get to creating community schools, who's involved in that process, and exactly what's happening here in Newark. And so I have never addressed the board before, and I want to offer the opportunity to have a conversation with me or to structure some learning opportunities for you all as the governing body of the city so that your knowledge is as deep as it can be so that you can be effectively engaged in the process. To that point, we have been on one site visit to Baltimore. Both Ariana and Tony participated in that visit. We have another visit this Thursday, which Ariana cannot attend to a school in New York. There are a couple of spaces, so if anyone has time, I know that it's a work day and it's hard to get out of work, but if you want to go on that visit and see a community school, I urge you to reach out to me. It is one of the oldest and the flagship school of the Children's Aid Society, and I call it the mothership. It is truly an extraordinary place. People come from all over the world to learn from this school and to see it. So it's Thursday. We'll be leaving City Hall at 12:30, and there will be other visits scheduled. And so this is just the beginning of inviting you all to be part of the learning that we're all doing collectively. There are a couple of meetings that are happening that are around technical assistance for the applications that the schools have received. They are open meetings. We have opened them to the community, and so I just wanted to, I'm hoping that at some point the mayor may be able to get by one or two of them, even if just briefly to say hello. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. at Belmont Runyon, and 4 p.m. at Louise A. Spencer. And I just want to advise the board to understand that the application process requires community participation, that it is built into the application, that the principals have to demonstrate that they have worked with parents, teachers, and other community members to even put together their application and to demonstrate evidence of that. And so it is designed to be a process where we are moving, if they're not already there, which I presume many of them are, the schools to a place of being more inclusive about the school planning and design process. And so the meetings that I just mentioned are to talk about the application with the entire community, whoever it is that shows up, so that people understand the elements of the application and understand how they can be involved if they choose to be involved. And I do, I echo, I think that providing information is difficult because you don't know how much is too much and you don't want to lose people, but community schools are successful, and they're called community schools because everybody is involved, and I think that we have to hold that at the center of what it is that we're talking about when we're talking about community schools. And if people don't have information, they make up their own information. I think we know that very well here, and so I want to be as intentional as I can be with you all as providing you with as much information as you need to understand the process and to be involved in the process. So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wells. Last, we have Ms. Denise Crawford.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Happy New Year's. I'm going to really be brief. I listen. First of all, the attendance. Someone called me, don't ask me what schools, don't ask me what people names. We can talk later, but I'm not letting everybody's business out because folks didn't ask me to do that. First of all, the attendance. Someone called me, and one of the reasons why they was having a problem, they was in court. And they called me, said, Ms. Crawford, how dare them take me to court when I have 2 kids, and the reason why they're being late. It's a good thing I'm hearing that folks are going to being put in court, but if you're putting the wrong people in court, that's not cool at all. But this lady child was getting to school, but late is because of that the child had to go to another school first to get the smaller child there. So she said that she was being dragged to court. Okay, so we do need to fix some of these things. Disciplinary. Okay, I sat here and I had heard, this report about, it's not accurate, or these things aren't going on. This is what's going on in this district. One, I'm going to say it again, we need the superintendent's parent advisory board back. We had a disciplinary committee. You let the person go. We as parents, we sat, staff members sat, the community sat, and they worked on this, and guess what? You act like it don't even exist. They said they didn't know anything about it. Okay? It does exist. And these kids are bringing knives to school. They're tasing other students. It is ridiculous. And guess what? It is being said that the kids can come back to school after they have committed a criminal act. I don't know what type of support, what kind of help that these kids are getting, but think about the other kids that are the victims. So we need some serious help. You notice when I look around, oh, I'm sorry, I ain't looking at y'all too. When I say that it takes all of us to resolve these problems, you can't come in here and give a report and don't do anything about it. Okay? I can sit down and write a report all day because it's not happening because I don't like to do that type of work. But you are getting paid for this, and then there's some of us that are willing to just give up our time for nothing. So you need to get with us. We all need to work together. Our kids need help. And they're not going to get help if all we're doing is writing reports. We all need the help. Get in the trenches. Help. And the last thing that I do want to say, I done been here before, and I'm going to say it. Science Park doesn't even have the address on the building. Science Park doesn't even have the marquee. The money is there. I've been told several times, said that it was going to happen. I'm tired of asking. Please make it happen. Please make sure that each and every last one of these buildings have there's still punch holes going on. Things aren't right because we aren't doing them.
Ms. Crawford?
Let's, 1 second. Thank you. Let's all work together. This is our community. I love all of you. Thank you. And happy birthday again in public. I say, please, let all of us work together and let's stop disrespecting each other. It's work that got to be done, and the only way it's going to be done, roll up the sleeves and let's get to work.
Thank you very much, Ms. Crawford. This concludes public participation. Next, we have all the new business. First speaker, Donald Jackson, and then Ms. Baskerville Richardson.
So, good evening, everyone. The close of our meeting, I'm going to be very brief. Lunch, the lunch issue has definitely been an issue of mine for quite some time. As the speaker said, even going back to my days in high school, which wasn't really that long ago. So, this needs to definitely be a long-going conversation, and this is going to take. The community definitely has to be involved, and the school level definitely has to be involved, because what is the solution to this issue that we've had for quite some time? And I know that we compare ourselves to other districts and what other districts do, but there are simply a lot of factors and a lot of issues, and I've heard some solutions go out, which, you know, I'm going to be honest, I don't have the solution at all, and that's why I think it takes a lot of, that's why we form committees and we put people on committees to come up with ideas and come up with information so that we can explore different venues to see what best fits this district. You know, so if we can, I'm not quite sure if this will probably flow into facilities. Sounds like a facilities matter. So I would definitely make sure I'll put it on our agenda to discuss, and if not, if we can get it to the proper committee, and even forming a subcommittee where we bring in parents and community members, and we have a meeting once a month, or you know, however much meetings we need to try to come up with a solution for the next school year to rectify the issue that we're having with the breakfast and lunch program.
Thank you very much. Ms. Baskerville?
Yes, I just want to say very quickly, 3 quick items. One, I think to the board and to the district that hopefully all of these problems that have come to the forefront today, that we make sure that they're addressed in the strategic planning. And the second thing is, I know Dr. Wells stepped out of the room, but please correct me if I'm wrong, Chair Perillo, I believe that Dr. Wells either has been or I guess not yet, but will be requested to present to the board at our next retreat regarding a full rollout on community schools, the education piece.
That is correct. I'm just waiting to have a more in-depth conversation with Ms. Gilbert, and also with yourself, Ms. Baskerville. So collectively, we could have the agenda and have already the date for the community schools board retreat.
Okay, so I think, just from my perspective, maybe confirming a date with Dr. Wells would be helpful.
Yes, yes, in addition to.
Okay, and the last thing is, I don't see Mr. Haggerty here, and I see that the superintendent has left, but in terms of old business, I just really thought about the issue of the school IDs for the high school students, if we can get an update. There's so many issues in the district that sometimes we forget about some of the ones that we need to follow up on, and the issue of whether or not all of our high school students have IDs, whether or not the district is going to embark upon some sort of way to ensure that all of the high schools have an ID. I don't know at this point, since I don't see the ultimately responsible parties here, but I think that, we do need an answer or an update on that as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Lewis?
I just want to, put on record, I know the superintendent left, but maybe I see Lizzie back there and Martha taking notes. I just need more information about the selection of the Transparency Committee. Who's going to select those individuals, who's going to serve on that committee, and how soon do we look to make that committee a reality?
Thank you very much, Mr. Lewis. Any other board member? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Have a great night, everyone.
Who moved it? Lewis. Second. Sillinger.